Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very, very, very first podcast of The Middleman. I am Roy B, the host, and today my very first inaugural guest for my show is the wonderful, the amazing Veronica Jane. Welcome, Veronica Jane. Let me let the listeners know a little bit about yourself. And she's also doing her podcast today, so it's like a twin podcast.
It is. We're just kind of riffing and seeing how it goes. So, yeah, I'm Veronica Jane, and I have a podcast called This Isn't Me, where I explore all the self limiting beliefs that have held me back and the layers of self that I unravel and explore and create new identities within. And so I thought, why not come on and explore this developing concept of belief with the middleman, Roy? So, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, we're going to be delving into your shadow today, which is like really exciting stuff. So, for those who are listening for the very first time and probably aren't aware of what the shadow means and our skills as well. So, myself, I'm a spiritual coach and mentor, a spiritual counselor. I'm also a psychic medium, intuitive healer, Reiki master, and I also work with neurolinguistic programming, hypnosis, and emotional change techniques. So, I've got both intuitive gifts, which is my main thing because I'm the middleman between your mind, body, and soul, and the earthbound modalities that I've learned recently and starting to use to help coach people and help them move beyond those limiting beliefs. So I certainly believe I've got the tools. And shadow delving is something I've been doing for a long, long time. To me, it's a spiritual concept of removing limiting beliefs and facing that darkness of yourself and just basically understanding it and therefore integrating it into your system rather than hiding it.
Mm,
So,
I
and
love it.
what would you say what's your version of the shadow? What would you feel the shadow is according to your
Yeah,
belief?
very similar, I think. For me, someone asked me that today, like, when did you start doing shadow work? And I think I'm doing it wrong. And I was like, I don't know if you can do it wrong. Like, for me, it's something since I was 6 years old, I would lay in bed philosophically thinking about what happens after this body doesn't exist anymore. Like, because at the time I was told I would earn my way to heaven and, my body would live on forever in something beyond the earth plane. And I was like, what? So I remember always looking at who am I? Why am I here? And what's my purpose? And how do I move in this world? And so when I started like shadow work, it would have started more in the context of medicine, looking at psychology, looking at who I am, what I'm here for. And that evolved to probably my gateway was yoga. As I started studying yoga and meditation, the science I was learning from this really beautifully integrated course of the science of the West and the science and history and philosophy of the East, I was like, oh, there's science here for all the things that these beliefs and traditions and cultures have held knowledge for tens of thousands of years. So
Yeah, yeah,
the shadow
absolutely.
work for me is the same. It's delving into like, what is the darkness that we're hiding? Where's the shame and the guilt and why? And is that just socially constructed?
Yeah,
And who are you really? Like, what are the darkest, most shameful or corrupt or terrifying parts of self that are actually all of who you are? And
exactly,
how do you own
exactly.
it? And how
And
do you
and
make it your superpower? How do you make it your strength? How do you transmute it into something that actually serves in the world or
yeah,
adds to the experience?
absolutely. And interesting, you said what is our purpose in life? Our purpose is to become us and
Mm,
integrate everything about us, which shadow work's a massive key part of. For
mm,
me, though, like if you're just doing shadow work for a badge of honor, you're not doing that's when you're not doing it correctly.
as if
I've worked on this a little bit, and that means I've done it. And it's like there's always different layers. You think you've done one part of your shadow, and then years later, or even a month later, there might be another level. There's always levels down.
I
Just
hit the
like when it
gap
comes
when
to
I feel
spiritual
that.
enlightenment, or activating your spirituality and your gifts and everything, there's always another level up. Like I started my Reiki journey back in 2010, but it actually activated in 2006. So it activated for 4 years before I even did Reiki one and was attuned to it. And now it's a daily practice, and it's still my intuitive healing abilities are still evolving.
Amazing.
So yeah, and it's just like because I'm open. I like not. I prefer to be free, and the more abilities I have, the more I can help people. The big and basically the stronger my light, the the stronger someone's shadow has to be for me not be able to see into it.
Right. I love that perspective. I think I got that understanding that like this work of being who I am and showing that boldly in the world, it's never going to end.
No,
And when I,
it's called a daily practice for, a spiritual practice. It's called a spiritual practice for it because you've got to practice it every day, every
there's
day.
this desire for myself to, like recovering perfectionist, to be like done. Like one day I'll be like the ultimate version of myself and I can be like, ugh, and relax. And I'm
Yeah.
like, why don't you just relax into everything that you are now as you continue to evolve and expand and become? Because that's the experience of life, is that endless becoming. I
Yeah,
think.
and even when we're done on the physical plane, we just transition back into energy. So we're never done because we're part of this massive universe that's forever growing, which means we're forever growing.
That's
And,
the
and, and
science
each
that helps.
experience we have on Mother Earth and other planets we decide to go and have experiences on just adds to the greater whole and it grows.
Ooh. That's the science that I think helped me really connect with spirituality more. I still don't even know how to use that word. Is that knowing that the universe, we haven't found the end of, and it's constantly expanding, and that this, on a cellular level, the smaller we go, the realize there might not be any ending there. We keep getting smaller and smaller and bigger and bigger. There's this
Yeah.
endlessness
Well,
that
they
I'm like,
say, like, if you've got the difference, the distance between 2 microns
yeah,
under under a under one of those giant, those microscope,
yeah,
one of those microscopes that looks at macrons, there's still a gap between them. So you can then split that gap. And then the splits in that gap, you can split them. And then the splits in that gap, you can then split, you can just continue to split it. And it's like the universe, which is forever expansive, you've also got the macroverse that is forever expansive within that universe.
mm-hmm. Yeah. There's so much space, and we don't know what's in the space.
Yeah.
Maybe to create what's in the space.
Yeah. If you want some insight on that visually, watch Ant-Man
Yeah.
because he drops into the quantum realm. Which
Right.
and that's the thing we're delving into more at the moment. Quantum's becoming a bit of a buzzword now.
It is.
The delving, but I've been working with the quantum realms for long before it became a trendy thing.
Could you explain how you perceive quantum? Because I still am not sure how to contextualize
For
it.
me, quantum's all about shadow. Shadow's quantum because it's going within. It's going to the deepest depths within and finding the tiniest threads that link to past lives or this life or some piece of trauma that the body and the mind repressed and you're splitting infinites
Got it.
because you go into the human body and going, okay, there's a pain in the elbow, well, let's split that. Where's it linking to? And it's like you're following the body's neurons and electrical signals to an emotional block, which then links to a spiritual block, which then links to a past life. So then you're splitting it again into a different person that was you, and it just keeps going. The more you delve, the more rabbit holes you go down. You're going up and down at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like
Right.
you yo-yoing because sometimes you'll delve up into spiritual existence, then you'll delve back down into the body and nanoscopic atoms and creations, and
Wow.
it's fascinating, and it just never stops, forever grows. The knowledge of it.
Yeah.
And often when I'm having conversations with people about this, I'll get realizations about my own blocks and my own shadow that I haven't figured yet.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, oh, I thought I worked on that. And now I've got another layer. God damn it.
I'd love to hear more about that. Like, as I started as myself too, as an NLP coach and facilitator now with the same certifications that you recently acquired, I was working before that as an educator, like a qualified school educator. And always, it's funny, I've only just tuned into sort of what I might call my intuition over the last couple of years and really started listening to and watching synchronicities align and being a little like, I don't even know what to do with this. Someone introduced me to angel numbers at like a really unique time in my life where I was like, okay, is that why I'm
Yeah.
always 1111 or 111? And she was like, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
I'm still like, all these things that enter my life, I'm still a little bit like resistant. And so I'd love to hear, like, as this is your first episode, do
yeah,
you want
well,
to share?
angel numbers there, because she was talking about like yoga being the gateway into spirituality or one of the gateways. Well, angel numbers is the gateway into the matrix.
Okay.
So I teach people how to see the matrix. I call it. I've given the workshop many names over the years, but essentially it's helping people understand how the matrix is around us. So how even like when we did the NLP course, I think it was the very first day, a few of us were sat across at the park,
Mm.
and I was explaining to them how a tiny little curved thin leaf at my feet was a message about something.
Right.
I said, because like there's no such thing as a coincidence. So where I sat with that leaf being there had to be a reason why it was there, because it was right at my feet.
So you look for messages in everything.
No, I allow them to find me.
Mm.
Because because that's how I was trained initially. I was given a job as a courier, and so it meant I was getting bombarded with pictures, thousands, literally thousands of pictures a day, and it was giving me that gave me the opportunity to use my intuition to filter it until I could get down to one, because intuition sort of it's like you could see 1,000 images in a day, yet one particular image seems to be energetically highlighted with a marker pen.
Sure.
And then so when that gets highlighted like that, it's like, okay, why that one? And then you actually use your knowledge base, which is extensive because it's from as far back as you can remember, all the things you've ever done. That's the key code to interpreting that particular image. It's
Right.
massively expansive, but in a strange way, fairly easy to teach. But then all you've got to do is build your language from your knowledge. So for me, growing up, I used to love movies. So I'll get movie references or the picture of a character, or but I also love animal totems. So I've got quite a few reference books on those. So if an animal presents itself, I tend to know, and I've been doing it that long, I tend to know the meaning. Quite often, going back to angel numbers, if someone says, "Oh yeah, I've seen 777," I can almost quote what it says in the book because I've quoted it that many times.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially treble twos and things, because I'm seeing a lot of twos at the moment, which is all about the final details are being worked out. Give all your worries and fears up to the angels and let go and have faith.
Oh, I love that.
That's triple two in the angel numbers book, pretty much.
You know, and see, and my resistant science brain is still going, okay, the worst case scenario is this isn't real or right or whatever. And I still understand the power of the mind and the power of visualization and the power of belief. So, worst case scenario, all of these things aren't real. I can still sit with the comfort of going, this belief holds so much power. Like we know the science of the placebo effect, and what you desire to perceive, you will find evidence for. And so it's so powerful for me to think that, you know, that you can take on a belief that brings you joy, peace, happiness. I have heard you speak to how you serve people, and it gives them knowing, it gives them peace, it gives them assurance. And like it to me, that's the worst case scenario, and that's I think so powerful. And I beyond that want to believe in so much more, and have felt and experienced so many things that I'm like I can't deny that there's more
Yeah,
than no.
and for me, I mean, I help people in many powerful ways, and one of those is I help people start to understand their language with the matrix.
Mm.
So
What?
then when they get the synchronicities or these little things, they're not getting frustrated, not going, "Oh, what's that mean? I have no idea." And I show them and they go, "Oh yeah, this is going on in my life, and that's why I've seen that. That makes total sense." And then all of a sudden I've given them peace of mind for the rest of their life over, what's that worth?
That's powerful. Yeah.
Years worth of frustration gone like that
Yeah, because I
in an
think so
hour's
often
session.
our minds are so busy trying to make everything mean something. Someone can just point you to what you already know. There's such a
Yeah.
sense of ease and
But well,
calm.
well, you think about last time we was on Zoom together,
Mm,
and that rock in the back in your background
mm.
that is now gone.
Yeah, that book that you pointed out. Yeah, I actually, so what I did was I ripped all the pages about gratitude out, and they're sitting there, and I flip
Yeah,
through them each day. I flip to a new one. But that other point that was about, you know, just being constrained by time and really feeling this
yeah,
sense of urgency unconsciously as the first thing I would see when I would wake up. So I was like, I don't want this. This book also reminds me of something I'm not doing that's
yeah,
not
yeah,
true.
yeah.
Someone
And
else.
without realizing it,
Yeah.
our personal matrix, we surround ourselves in our personal matrix. We are walking in our personal matrix, and we're walking blind.
Mm.
So I was given this amazing gift to be able to see it. Yeah, like, there's still miss bits because it's a massive, massive thing. And
Mm.
sometimes the initial, because it comes in threes, you get the heads up. So you get like the initial warning or heads up if it's because it's not always a bad thing.
Yeah.
And quite often with me anyway, sometimes the initial warning's that subtle that I miss it. And then when I get the event, I'll go, oh, that thing was a heads up. I'm like, oh, it was just infinitely subtle. And I'm like, no wonder I missed it because it was just so innocuous. And then you get the event, and then you get what happens is, depending on how out there it is in regards to logic, you'll get the confirmation because it has to placate the logical mind. Otherwise, the logical mind will consistently question it.
Mm.
So that has to happen that way so you can be at peace with it and understand it.
Yeah. Well, I
So
think the other gateway for me was that understanding of like energetic movement, and that's something I've only attuned to in like the last 6 months to a year, where I actually got to feel and experience that energy movement that helped me realize there's so much beyond matter that we don't need to fully understand, and we can just trust that there's this energy and there's this connection. And I'm
yeah,
so curious about what you do, because
well,
it sounds like you've just known this your whole life and been open to belief.
yeah,
Do you want
yeah,
to share
yeah,
that
yeah,
in
yeah.
your next episode? Do you want to
It's,
share that, or?
yeah, it's just part of my intuition. Just part of my intuition, and I've just like anything. Some people are more naturally gifted than others, but if you want to be the best at it, you work at your natural gifts as well.
Do you think everybody has some of that and they're just closed off to it? Do you think everyone can have like a
Absolutely.
connection or a mediumship? Yeah.
Yeah. Look. I truly believe that we've all got a purpose, which is to grow as a soul, which is why our purpose in life is to become ourselves fully and fully integrated. And part of that, we're given the tools for that journey. So if your journey doesn't need to involve mediumship or energy healing, then you're not going to need that gift. And the thing with energy, it always takes the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
So, and that even applies to physical world
Yes,
energy,
that's something.
aka
Yeah.
electricity.
Yeah.
So, if you've got these extra gifts, it's going to create resistance. So
Mm,
you're not going to have them.
right.
So some people might just need gut instinct for their whole life,
Yeah.
and
Right.
then they'll be given other like earthbound tools. They'll be given maybe a really high IQ, or they might be that way inclined, or they'll be really good with their hands because they're a mechanic their whole life and build things, and they've just got a sense to, they've got this intuitive sense to know when a part goes together in the right angle and the right way. It's still powerful intuition for their mission.
Mm.
But me, I'm here to teach people about their superpowers, so I need all mine activated. So I can understand anybody that comes to me, I can level them up into their next superpower, their next intuitive gift.
And that's part of what you do, is help people find that for themselves if they desire to.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So even, I get such a range. I get beginners to masters.
Do you see people who like have it and are just afraid of it and don't want to tap into it, and you like
Absolutely.
want to crack them open, or?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it's part of the journey. Like I still fear some of my power
Yeah.
because I feel that's necessary as like that's the edge. It stays there until you're ready to grow, and then you push beyond that. But then there's always another edge of, okay, I'm even more powerful. Okay, that's scary. And then you push through that, and then there's another edge. Okay, I'm even more powerful. That's scary. And you keep going, you keep going, and you'll never stop until the day you transmute back to energy.
Yeah. I think that recognition, like so much in our society, for myself at least, I adopted a victim story for so much of my life and didn't honestly know how to have a relationship with my own power. And that was really ultimate freedom, just being exactly who I am as I continue to evolve and expand. Like that in itself is so powerful and freeing. And why wouldn't I want to access all that I'm capable of, or all that I can serve in the world? So,
Yeah. And the
and there
biggest the
is.
biggest societal gateway being opened at the moment is divine masculine and divine feminine and the divine child. We're being opened up to our sovereignty, to be able to stand in
Yeah,
our power, whether that's our masculine or our feminine or
I
even
love
our inner
that.
child.
Yeah, I've been exploring a lot of that, because even psychology is using a lot of that language, right? Is reparenting, inner child work. And for myself, coming from a Christian belief set where I felt masculinity and femininity were very gendered and were used in the power and control structures, I really resisted that language for a long time. And
Mm.
then I started to understand just that doing and non-doing, the yin and the yang, and masculine and feminine energies being that. And that's when I really opened to it and started to play with it and look at where are these parts of like sides of myself, and how do I integrate them and be standing in both powerfully, because I was wounded in both sides, and
Yeah.
I was drawing in people into my life who were reflecting that back to me, especially when it came to the relational elements of how do I find an integrated masculine and feminine energy in myself. And it's so I'm reflecting integrated partners and attracting them, because I didn't, that's so powerful when they work together in an individual and in a collective, in a partnership or a group.
Yeah, and you would have been attracting the people that were just reflecting your shadow back at you for you
Totally.
to heal and
No, I wasn't. They were the problem.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
My ex-husband
and,
and my
and,
ex-boyfriend. They were
yeah,
100% the problem.
and that's it. And interesting enough, we completely misunderstand our reflections,
Totally.
because if we're not ready to own it, we reject it.
Totally.
So that's why we're getting these toxic relationships. It's not really, we're being toxic with ourselves, and we're just getting that reflected back to us, going, look, this person's showing you how you're treating yourself. Do you want to keep that? Do you want to stay in that kind of relationship with yourself? And we
Totally.
blame it on them and come up with these victim stories, and
That's so
but
what I
that's all part of the wonderful journey. That's what walking through shadow is. So if for those listening, if you're in a really toxic relationship at the moment, I can guarantee 100% you're stood right in the middle of your shadow.
Yeah,
So
that was a lot of
start
mine.
owning it. Start owning why if you don't like being in there, that's because you're treating yourself that way in a deep level that you're probably not conscious of yet.
Yeah.
That might the trigger alert. Oh, okay, no, too late for trigger alert.
That's hard to hear sometimes. Like when I got 100% responsibility, it was like I left my marriage. I left my marriage to go and work on myself. Like really, I said to him, "This isn't it," and like this isn't. We're not loving each other anymore, and like this isn't. There's something else. We're not growing. We're stuck.
Mm,
And I didn't realize how much. Like in my mind at that time, still, it was like, but mostly him. Like I'm reading a lot and I'm growing. It's mostly him. And when I delved into it, the amount that I could see and own was huge. I was like, oh, I co-created all of this. I am
yeah.
100% of my side. And I created this based on what the learnings I didn't want to look at. And same thing with my ex-boyfriend. It was so much easier just to look at, things like anxious and avoidant dances and be like, well, what in me is avoidant?
Mm.
What am I not wanting to look at there? And that's in life. Like, how is this showing up in every area of my life? What's the lesson I keep pushing against here?
Yeah, and you think about it, like nature reflects back at us as well. So you look at emotions are, their emotions are balanced. They're water. So water. So in regards to the human self and self work, water means emotions. So
Okay.
if you look at tarot, the tarot deck they always have cups, which is all about emotions. So you think about when your emotions aren't flowing and you feel stuck in life, you have to heal, right? Well, you look at nature, when a river isn't flowing or a stream isn't flowing and gets stuck, what grows over it? Algae. What color is algae? Green. What color is the heart chakra? Green.
Ah,
I mean, there's probably going to be some person out there, correct me, because there's going to be
like,
some
well,
plant in
scientifically.
South America that's red, and I'm like, yeah, all right, exception to the rule. But more often than not, algae that grows because the water's stagnant and there's no flow is green. And green is the color of healing.
So much of my experience has been realizing that I shut off at a very young age to feeling and just thought big feelings weren't okay. And then I limited my human experience by trying to feel only the positive things or just not experiencing the whole spectrum of human emotion.
Yeah.
And as I've leaned into all these different modalities, specifically allowing emotional experiences to come out through different somatic work, I'm like, oh, is it that easy?
Mm.
Sometimes it's 16 seconds of experiencing an emotion and really owning what I was hiding from. And then it's just, I can see it leave. And I'm like, well, that wasn't, I spent years avoiding that feeling, and that's all I had to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what is it? You hug, if you have a hug for 20 seconds, it releases endorphins and all kinds of good drugs into your body.
Yeah.
And then you feel happy. But no, people don't like hugging. Like, I mean, it's a big thing for me. I was given really long arms by God, by my, creator. I'm not
You claim
religious,
to
but
be
yeah.
a master hugger.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I was given long arms for a reason, so I could hug people. And I'm renowned for my hugs, my amazing hugs. Yeah, some people it's like wet lettuce arms. I'm like, what the hell's that?
Well, dude, what I think from that, from my own experience, only 6 months ago, I had a man hug me at an event and say, Veronica, you need to let more love in, right? And I was like, yeah, I know. I'm working on it. Like for me, it was that danger of being fully um, loved and seen and heard, and having someone offer you that joy and connection and pleasure. There was something in my unconscious that was like, if I let that fully in and it
Yeah,
feels it, and the magic that is that human connection, it can also be taken away.
yeah,
And I was so afraid to feel hurt and grief and loss that I just wouldn't let myself feel the other feelings either. I'd rather feel less than feel all of it. And I didn't know I was doing that. I used to speak to being like open to all of it. And I realized how much I wasn't. I was terrified.
And interesting enough, so we're catching up tomorrow for a barbecue, aren't we?
Yeah.
So I have another little trick that was taught to me by a beautiful friend of mine, where during a hug you get a hand on the back of the nape of the neck and at the base of the spine. So basically, you got your hands at the top and bottom of the spine, and that just that brings it up to a whole new level because it makes. So I did that technique with one of the ladies at the NLP course that we did, who's a bit resistant to connect, and within about 4 seconds, she just went in deep. Like a hug got really tighter, and she could have just stayed there. And it was so beautiful to give that, and then also enable that person to receive back and give that and be part of that really genuine connection. And she, afterwards, after we released from the embrace, it was just like she was a whole different person, and
Well,
that took 4 seconds.
I wonder if there's something metaphysical there. For me, it just comes to like that really
Yeah,
primal, like that's like your nurturer, your mother, your father holding you, that support. Like when a lover holds me that way, or I've held a lover in that way, like there's something just in that holding that you're just like
yeah.
melt.
And look, I'm being an energy healer. I can just flow energy up and down your spine for as well, just to add on to it.
Nice.
That's like the icing on the cake. That some Reiki energy flowing through you.
I was like, will you put that on your dating profile? Because I feel like that's an asset.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
It's like I can
yeah.
make energy move through you in ways you don't even know.
Oh yeah. Ring of power on the clitoris.
My girl, one of my first clients, we did the Ring of Power the other day, and we're calling it the Ring of Fire now. She's like, I know that's not what it's called, but she keeps singing the Johnny Cash song, and
Oh
she's like,
yeah.
my Ring of Fire had me create so much today. Ring of Fire is a different thing.
Yeah, you could anchor some serious pleasure on a certain part of the lady's
There's a lot
anatomy.
of good parts you could lock. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, where do you want to share more with your audience, with your guests about you or where you come from, or do we just want to dive into me and
Yeah, I can do a little bit. It is my first episode after all. So originally, for those that have probably picked up on that, I'm originally from England. My accent has softened a little bit because I did have a client in the UK the other day, and they sounded like they're from Yorkshire. I'm just like, God, their accent was so strong. Yeah, growing up in Lincolnshire, because that's where I'm from, the Lincolnshire accent's actually in England is actually quite soft compared to like the Geordies and the Mancunians and the Scousers, the Liverpool and London and everything like that, and the Irish. Lincolnshire is quite, yeah, it's not. But then when I've been in Australia for 14 years now, and I speak to my family and friends back in England, and it's just like, geez, you sound like you're from Yorkshire because their accent's really thick as well in comparison. Yeah, so I've done quite a big journey. I've moved a lot. I think I moved again recently, and that was something like my 36th move in my lifetime.
yeah.
From the age of 7, 36 moves, and that's and I only included just like I spent time in the armed forces. I was in the Royal British Navy for 5 years. You don't really move much in them. You change billets, maybe change ships, but I didn't really count that.
Mm.
So that's like 36, pretty much 36 house moves. And most of them have actually been since I've lived in Australia, and half of them have been in the last 6 years.
You just felt called to transition, or
I think part of my journey, because I do carry the wizard's energy a lot. I'm traveling around a lot.
kind of nomadic?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because originally, like one of my old business names was Soul Energy Traveler.
Mm.
So that heart of the traveler, because I think I've got my St. Christopher on today, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, there's obviously some traveling going on, but it's also about journey. I can journey through people's shadow, journey through people's soul. I can journey into people's dreams. That's a fun technique. I akin it to sleep dentistry. So if people can't do Zoom or too uncomfortable to do one-on-ones, and they just want to be asleep when I can do some healing, I do it that way.
From like you're physically at a distance, like you're at home, they're at home.
Well, they're asleep wherever they live, and I've only ever done it client wise twice, and both times one person, yeah, they both saw me in their dream.
Wild.
Yeah, yeah, and that happened inadvertently.
Did you tell them when you were going to do it so they
Yeah,
could?
yeah, because you have to set it up. You have to set it up. You have to create an energetic gateway. You have to give them the key.
Consent,
So
I
the way
suppose.
I do that is I make sure they've got a crystal there end and open the doorway, so then they can close it in the morning. And I do that for respect and
Yeah, that sounds
peace
like
of
a
mind
consent.
and that kind of thing. Because I know who my bosses are, and they watch me 24/7. And if I do the wrong thing, I lose gifts or I lose clients.
Wow. You've
Oh
experienced
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, they are the most beautiful but the toughest
lessons.
bosses because you can't hide from them. You can't lie to them, and you can't wake up going, "Oh, I can't come in today because I've got a hangover."
So some people might call
Because
that
they,
like
they know you're on a boat fishing or something.
right. And so have you done something consciously where then you've seen a consequence because you realize you operated outside of what you knew was your integrity or your own
I've
path?
always been pretty much integrity anyway. I've always kind of known who my bosses are, but sometimes I've complained and moaned and going, this is just too hard. I don't want these gifts anymore. And they've literally turned my gifts off. And I felt completely wrong and weird. I'm like, okay, bring them back. Yeah, half an hour later, I'm begging them to turn them on again.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I didn't like, and I've only ever done that twice.
Okay.
But now I'm at a place where I just so love my gifts. I want, all right, give me more. I
Yeah.
want more
You're
now. I
using
want to
them to
open up
serve
more.
in the world. That's really powerful.
Yeah, yeah, look, and we, we also do this human journey. We're down here to have the human experience as a
Yeah,
soul.
we are. Yeah.
So, we're given all these challenges in the human body that's weak and frail and overthinks and has this nervous system that can overload
Yeah.
and in a strange way, like on a very simplistic level, our human body is just not capable of handling spiritual
Mm.
energies and intuitive gifts. So we somehow have to learn how to blend it,
Yeah.
because so for instance, like I'm an intuitive energy healer. And how my gift works is I can literally feel pain in my body that's in someone else's.
Well, that's how we came into our dialogue because you were like, I know what the main blocker is there for you. And you said fear. And I was like, I get that message consistently. Like, I've
Yeah.
experienced fear, anxiety, whatever you want to name it, worry, concern. And like, I've had partners too be like, this fear comes up in you sometimes. It just seems to create a whole different story for you. And I don't know how to support you when you're in that
Yeah.
fear.
Yeah. And people go, why would you want to go through pain like that? Why would you want to accept pain into your body from someone else's? I'm like, because it gives me so much information. I know
Do you
exactly
have
where
one
it's sitting
for
in their
me?
body. I know exactly what it's linked to. And especially when it comes to transferred pain.
Yeah.
So maybe their elbow's hurting and I'm going, no, it's your shoulder. No, it's
Right.
always been my elbow's hurting. I'm like, trust me, it's your shoulder because that's where it's pinging up in
You
me.
can take it in a sense, and can you also sort of turn it off or minimize it? You don't have to feel someone else's pain.
I get 10% of it.
Okay.
And then once they've understood where it is, then the pain goes.
Wild.
So
And
yeah, I only get it enough so I can explain to them where it is. And once I've explained it to that where that is and they've understood it and I've got all the follow-on links,
yeah.
the pain will go because it's just showing me. It's like what's the analogy? It's like the things you put on your arm to find your heartbeat.
Yeah.
It's just like one of those, and when you take it off, you can't see that person's heartbeat anymore. It's a similar principle thing. It's like, okay, I've got all the information I needed, so I don't need to feel the pain anymore.
And is that the same for emotions, or is it only as like a pain sensation?
No, no, I can feel people's emotions. That's the more challenging one because they actually manifest as my own. So if someone's in deep fear
Yeah.
and I walk past them, all of a sudden I'll be having these deep fearful thoughts and I won't know why.
Mm. And that's
And
one
it
of the
took me
choices
years of
that
observation to figure that as well.
someone can allow you into that, or you have to want to go into that, or is that for every person that you pass and engage with?
So the people that call themselves empaths, which means embodied pathetic,
Mm-hmm. I love
um,
that one. That was
or they can call themselves compassionate. So I prefer nowadays to use the word energy intuitive.
okay.
Um, so yeah, it's a gift, and it's just about learning how that gift works, and then you're able to get framework around it, boundaries, all those things that then enable you to work with it rather than it control you. Because
And
when it
you're also
controls you, it's just teaching you to step your boundaries up and understand the gift more.
yeah, like so many things.
Yeah.
And do you want to speak to like, have you always had this knowing, or do you want to speak to that story a little bit? I know I heard a podcast you held with our
Yeah.
friend.
So I was born gifted, and more often than not, most people go through the journey where the gifts get shut down.
Yeah.
Mine got turned down; they didn't get shut off. So I'm grateful for that. They just got sort of turned to a humming in the background. So I never did the switch off journey, as I know a lot of my compatriots within the spiritual industry did the switch off journey and then had to reactivate them and do that part of it. But me, there was always just humming in the background. So I always had intuition and always had gut instinct and always had a knowing. And then it just started to really grow around 17. And I bought my first tarot deck around, I think it's 18, 19 or 20. I can't quite remember. And that's when I started doing readings for people. And it just seemed a natural thing at the time. And there wasn't any deep calling. It just seemed the natural thing to do for me. It's like, you know, you leave school and you go and do a job that's kind of similar. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm due a tarot deck now. I'll go and get one.
Wild.
There's just that inner knowing, that energy push that makes you go and do something.
And what would you say to people like myself who historically have been very skeptical, and now I'm becoming more and more curious and open, and I just want to at least try everything on? Well, my perception of those sorts of readings in the past have been someone who is very good at reading people, whose life experiences might be quite broad, and who are able to help listen and pay attention and remind people of what they already know. And maybe that's because I've been experienced people who are maybe not as intuitive and kind of making it up, aren't actually genuinely skilled in these spiritual frameworks, and they're pretending, or maybe it was just my own avoidance and fear. And yet I was just kind of like, aren't they just talking to generalized human experiences and then picking up bits and pieces and then letting the person fill in the blanks?
Yeah, look, we're like any industry. There are charlatans and there are clever people.
Yeah,
So there are people that can read people and read that way, but not doesn't mean to say that's not
that's
helpful.
valuable
It's
too.
still
Yeah.
helpful. But you think about that last Zoom call that we had.
Mm,
That's not reading you,
mm,
because I was literally getting drawn to that thing behind you. There's no way I could know that. And I've had so many instances of knowing things that there's no way I could read it on that person's face or body movements or clothing or anything like that. And especially when it comes to mediumship, when I'm like explaining and describing a person that I've never met, that they don't have a photo of on their social media,
mm.
that or explaining things that's hidden in a little box in their bedroom somewhere that they've never shown anybody, and I'm describing it down to a T.
I'm like, do I really want to do this? I'm scared you're going to see. So, oh no, I was
Yeah,
joking. You like, do you want all of? I was like, all of it.
yeah,
That's who
yeah.
I
So
want to
yeah,
put
yeah,
all
yeah.
of it out
No,
there.
it's like anything. It's like any industry. You get good plumbers and you get really gifted plumbers, and you get bad plumbers. We're exactly the same. You get people who think they're gifted and try it and get a deck of cards and think they can read someone the next day. I've
Yeah,
been reading cards for 30 years
right.
and I'm damn good at it. And that's why I teach others, because I do it in a very different way to most. And
Well, it sounds like
I
you have
teach very fluent.
multi-modalities and lots of life experience to add into
Yeah.
this. And I love that it sounds like, everyone's going to, the way I hear you framing the world is grab all the tools that you can, right? You're like, I can teach you to
Yeah,
tap
yeah,
into
yeah.
what.
The more abilities I've got, the more I can teach. I mean, I'm actually I haven't done the process of getting it out on social media yet, but I'm holding a card reading masterclass next week on
Amazing.
Zoom, so I
Cool.
can teach. Because I actually had a school at the start of the year. I actually had a spiritual school at the start of the year.
Is
So I
that
was,
something you want to reinvigorate in the future?
yeah, absolutely, yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, when you
Just
said it used to, I was like, well, used to. Why are you still doing that? I think there'd be so many.
because I moved.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was I've got a sense that was a trial run.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's like my first
Yeah,
podcast was absolutely my like trial run. So I could figure out my voice, figure out the tech, figure out the
yeah,
networking, figure out the format. I learned so much.
yeah, yeah. So I thought, start a podcast, and then I a friend of mine contacted me saying, "Oh, where's your podcast link?" I went, "I haven't even done it yet, but thanks for showing me that I'm already got people waiting for it." That's
Yeah.
it.
Oh,
That,
totally.
that's see, that's synchronicity. That's the universe going, "You're doing the right thing. We're getting people waiting."
Yeah. Yeah, there's a queue. I tell you.
Right. So, are you ready to start
Am
delving?
I was like, what is he gonna say? Is it your I don't want you to know what's in my drawers. Do I have anything to hide?
Now you know what's in your drawers,
I'm being silly.
but
I
your
think my
shadow. We're going to find. So, for those listening, we're going to go into Veronica's shadow. That's going to be the name of my particular podcast. Veronica might name hers slightly differently.
mine might
Um,
be holy mother.
yeah, yeah.
You don't know,
Delving,
you don't know,
delving in
and
the
I
dark.
learned a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
delving in the dark. So,
Give me 3 seconds. I'm gonna shut my door so that the noise is minimized and get ready.
okay.
I'm gonna get ready. Just had to hide some things.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's
Lock a
cool.
little part of my heart up. Actually, one of our peers did a really beautiful visualization activity with me the other day to help me recognize. I know I have all these walls up. So we did a visual where he had me see a door and the handle and open the door and walk through. And by the end, all these other walls just dropped down. And it was just a beautiful way of recognizing how many ways we can protect ourselves. And part of why I'm here with you is I don't want to protect myself
Yeah.
anymore. I spoke
Yeah.
to you.
And we actually protect ourselves by using our strongest gifts.
Totally.
So interestingly enough, as soon as I said, right, we're going to start going into your shadow, my body temperature's gone up by about 10 degrees
Yeah.
because I work with Ra, as in the Egyptian sun god. So if I'm going to shine light on a shadow, I need to work with the most powerful light, which is the sun. And so I work with what's called like central sun energy,
Okay.
and that's channeled through Ra into my body. So it's like I'm acting, my solar plexus is activated like a sun,
Okay.
which enables me to see into your shadow.
Ooh.
Yeah, I do all these cool things that seem quite logical and
Yeah.
literal.
Well, if you want to think out loud during any of this process, to me, it's so cool to learn. Otherwise, you
Yeah.
do your
Yeah.
thing and I'll be receptive because
Okay.
the main thing I spoke to you about is knowing fear is there for me.
Yeah.
Knowing
So
I,
the first thing they're showing me is you've got three levels of fear around three different subjects. One's oh, so the biggest fear is you, and there's
Mhm.
fear around your parents.
Okay.
So that would be about our parents instill a lot of fear into us,
Yeah.
limiting beliefs. Now, this bit I know because you said it
Hmm.
previous, so this isn't intuitive information, but I use a combination of knowledge if I have it
Yeah, of
because
course.
it leads me to where I've got to go. You know, sometimes when you've got a map, you might have a partial part of the map, but not some of it.
Yeah, got to
It's
use
a
the
bit
key.
like that for those that are listening if they want a visual reference. So you quite religious, Christian, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Christianity definitely instills a lot of
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
limiting beliefs, especially around different dimensions and high end spiritual stuff, albeit the art, you know, the the paradox there is they follow a guy called Jesus who was the son of God and all that, and he could perform magic.
Mm-hmm.
To me, he was an ancient healer. And
Mm-hmm.
because the world was vibrationally less dense back then, miracles could be performed almost instantly.
Mm.
And we're actually getting back to that vibrational state as well. So our bodies are becoming less dense and more light, which is why we're doing all this shadow work to get rid of all this density.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of fear, shame, guilt. My models of the world were designed a lot through that framework that I believe was what just a bunch of truth very much distorted and used to control and hold power. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the question is where are you still allowing some of that? You're okay, wrong. Well, so you're choosing to allow that to still control you to keep you small.
Yes.
So therefore, you're scared to grow.
Yeah.
So
Even like
why?
to you, like communicating with you, I said I'm touching base with you to get some support originally because I'm scared of you. And I know that there's stuff there that I like I share in my podcast, I didn't want to believe in anything. I spent 10, 15 years of my life as an atheist going, there's nothing beyond material.
Yeah.
And
So
as
the only person holding you back is you. So to give some reference to those listening, I've currently got pain in the base of my back, and when I get pain there, I know, especially in this regards, it's about being held back because that's how it feels to me. Someone's holding my back, like literally holding my back. So you're holding yourself back, and you're still blaming your parents.
yep. I had a conversation with both of them over the last couple of weeks, being like, hey, I see in my healing journey, I wanted to blame both of you so much. And I was trying to learn my story and instead just, yeah, I was mad.
Yeah.
I wanted to just be able to give that to someone else to carry.
So what do you? Because what you haven't figured out yet is what you're blaming them for. So you've kept it as a generalism, like I'm blaming you, but I don't know what I'm blaming you for.
I blame them for not trusting love. I blame them for my mindset around money. I blame them for um, not letting me be self-expressed. I blamed them for the sexual shame that I carried from the church that they introduced me to.
So there was one, I think you said I blame them for my financial. So you stated that in the present.
Yeah.
So that means you're still blaming them for your
Yes.
money stuff.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
let's delve into that.
Okay.
So what was their money beliefs?
My parents, when I was about 5 or 6, bought a business and they went bankrupt. And so there was a lot of scarcity fear mindset around, are we going to have enough? They were both, dad was working really hard. He ended up moving, traveling as a truck driver to earn more money. And it was like, when my parents split up, my mom was always just trying to make sure we had just had enough. And it was like, oh, that's too nice. That's too expensive. We
So
can't.
do you feel Do you feel that you were almost living in a single parent situation?
Oh yeah, from 6 I was, yeah.
So that means you're blaming your mother more than your father.
She was more around in my life from 6 to 16. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so it's interesting that a lot of your beliefs are your mother's and you're the
Yeah.
feminine.
Yeah.
So
I
that will be affecting your divine feminine.
yeah. So my belief with my mom was that she was afraid to rise. And I know I see that in myself. It's like she stayed in relationships that kept her small, in my perspective. I've shared some of that with her. And she let the men provide for her. And I don't think she ever saw how capable and powerful and amazing she was. And
But so
that's
this is where I'm going to challenge you. So often in shadow work,
yes, please.
I will chop in because I want to stop the story where it doesn't need to continue.
Yeah.
So essentially, that's your opinion.
Yeah, totally.
Your opinion was saying that your mother, you was looking at it from a younger person's eyes with less knowledge than your mum. What if your mum's purpose was to be the homemaker and be provided for by the man? And that's not a disempowering thing. That was so. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. My mum was a homebody, was a fantastic cook, like
Mm.
home cook. That wasn't disempowering for her.
Yeah.
So my dad went out and did all the, he did the work. He came back. She ran the house.
Mm.
There are plenty of women out there that like running a house,
Yeah.
but they don't want, that feel that pressure of society going, no, you've got to go out and work. And like, why? I'm actually doing far more work at home that I enjoy because they might be OCD and cleaning freaks. They might love cooking and baking and
Yeah.
raising the kids and doing all those things. Why the fucking hell should they go to work?
Yeah.
Because they've got a perfectly good job at home that if their husband's successful or doesn't matter, well, whether he's not, if the husband's going out and bringing in the money, he's providing one way, she's providing the other. It's balanced.
So my mom did both. She was a full-time working mother and did a lot of domestic stuff. My stepfather was also good domestically. He was very contributing. I definitely, from my perception and the words that I hear her say, like there was a lot of perceived, like she didn't seem to enjoy it. She seemed to be resentful. And again, that's probably my
And
perception.
again, from your
Yeah.
perception from how old were you? 8, 7? Yeah. So from how would an 8-year old know that an adult's resentful?
Yeah. This is where
Perception is
rejection would come in.
perception. Oh, so here we go.
Yeah.
So perception is projection.
Yeah.
You were resentful because you weren't getting enough time with your mum because she was busy.
Totally.
So basically what you've been doing for all those years is still throwing a tantrum.
Yeah.
I want to be seen.
Totally.
That's why you're quite loud at times.
Yeah. Definitely.
So your yay is a cry for help.
Speak to that.
When you go yay,
Yay.
that's you going, Mum, look at me, I'm here.
Sure.
You're not so certain about that.
Well, I'm trying to look at it and recognize that that's true, and
So for
that
those that will watch this on YouTube, this is how shadow work really starts to kick because it makes people stop and go, I don't know if I'm going to accept this or not.
yeah, yeah.
I'm going to start rejecting this, and you can
Well, I
see
want to ask more questions, I guess, because I'm like, well, then that makes another little scared part of me go, well, so every time I'm joyful and self-expressed, that's attention seeking, or
a little bit, yeah.
yeah, right. So what again, I want to be countered on it, so I'll just be really frank and think out loud. Because then my reactive nature goes, well, then why are you saying it's not valuable to express joy or to
No, it's
yay?
totally valuable.
And I
So,
worry
so
about
it's a great question. So, what happens is when you've still got pain behind something that you currently believe to be positive, the energy of it carries that slither of shadow. So, when
mm,
you balance out that shadow and you still go, yay.
mm,
So, here's how it works, right? We clear this bit of shadow, right? And you accept that, yes, you was trying to get attention from your mum.
yeah,
And you fully understand that, you fully integrate it and fully let it go.
mm,
If that yay was 100% just a cry for mum, you'll stop doing it because it no longer has a purpose. It's no longer having any shadow energy driving it. If it was only a slither of shadow, which in this case I believe it to be because I'm getting an image in my mind's eye that there's a slither in there. Once that removes, the complete energy will be completely different. And when you go yay, everyone will react differently to it.
Yeah.
So the ones that have been at a deeper level of your shadow, they'll go, oh, that yay's a cry for help because they'll know the journey. Whereas the ones that haven't gone to your depth will just hear the yay.
Yeah, right.
Or they might go, or the ones at a similar level, they'll go, yeah, she's crying for help because I do the same.
Mm.
She goes, yay, I go, woo,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I spent my like late childhood just trying to get my mom's attention. I became a perfectionist, tried to get straight A's, do all the sports so she would come watch my plays. I would clean the house, like the whole thing, when she
Yeah.
was born, to be like, look, mom. And it came from a place of like wanting to serve her because I knew how busy she was and wanting more time and attention. It's like, great, if I clean the whole house, does that mean we get to read books
Yeah.
together?
So now the question is what are you still doing to gain validation from your mum and getting attention from your mum?
Oh, and not just my mom. That shows up in my relationships in general.
Oh, so you're projecting it onto your relationships at the moment, like you've outsourced.
Of course. Yeah, because I'm all my family's in Canada. And my mom and I actually have quite a beautiful relationship. It's evolved over the last few years where I've just started being like, can I just share all the shit?
Which is
And
why it's only a slither.
yeah. And I love her so much. Her strength is incredible. And she's shared so much of her life as I've shared mine and been like, Mom, I modeled your life without even knowing this happened for you. Like how that is insane to me. Like I followed a very similar trajectory, lived under same self-limiting beliefs.
Yeah, because you're trying to understand your mum instead of understanding yourself because you wanted validation from your mum. So the best thing to do is understand her because you're
Yeah.
really trying to understand yourself.
Yeah, fuck.
Because it always comes back to self. That's the thing with shadow. It always comes back to self. It's
Mm.
really you're just projecting your stuff onto your mum. She's reflecting it back. Neither of you know what's going on. Neither of you know you're doing that thing, and then you're both lost.
Well, that's the
She,
double-edged.
because we drop into this human condition. So your mum thinks you're being a brat.
Yeah.
You think your mum's being a cow or whatever.
Yeah,
You
we've
know,
never had a really fractured relationship. It was more like here's the perceptions I had of her that were of myself. Was that, she was a bit stoic. She wasn't as present and nurturing. She wasn't very soft. She wasn't very like she was judgmental and critical. And I'm all of those things. I've been all of those
she
things.
was a perfectionist, and you said you were a perfectionist.
100%.
So for her, this is what would have been going on. I've got to get the house perfect before I can tend to my daughter. The house has to be perfect, and you can never get things perfect.
Of course not. Yeah. Yeah. So much in the journey in the last few years, I've looked at my parents and been like, all the things I was so upset at you for, I can totally see from an adult perspective now, the function and the purpose, and that you did an incredible job. And I
Yeah,
was building stories around it.
yeah. It's one thing recognizing it; it's another thing going deep into your shadow and being able to let it go.
So how do you do that?
Because if you'd let all this go, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah. That's what I'm so good at, like awareness, like
Yeah.
cognitive. And then I'm like, what do I do with how do I
So that's the difference. So we can recognize our shadow, but
yeah.
then seeing the positive aspects of it. So this is how you twist shadow. This is how you shine light on it and then allow it to become a positive. So now we look at your mum was a perfectionist, right?
Mm.
You understand that we can never be perfect.
Mm.
Do you understand that to your core?
Yes.
Do you
Still
still try and be a
struggle.
perfectionist?
Mm, in the past, when I would see it that intention, now I see the intention and go, "That's crazy! Like that doesn't exist." And I
Okay,
try.
so you're still shifting to the new habit.
I still see myself unconsciously aiming for an impossible target and catching it and being like, "You're so cute!" Like that
Yeah.
doesn't isn't. It's going to
Okay,
feel.
so yeah, okay. Yeah, so you're in the process of shifting now. That's good. So that's why that slither's still there because you haven't fully shifted it yet.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I don't know like awareness, and then I make myself practice the knowledge, like live it, be it. And I'm like, is there something
Yeah.
else? Like, how do you
So
just
we can never get rid of shadow. That's why we'll never be perfect.
yeah,
But our imperfections make us perfect. That's the paradox we live in.
yeah,
So there's going to be times where your perfectionism can be used to drive you forward, but then when the wisdom comes in, is going, I know I'm using my perfectionism to get me to this next level. I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm just using that ability of perfectionism to get me to the next level.
Okay.
So therefore, it becomes a positive tool.
Yeah. I feel like that's sort of what one of my like my humor is definitely a self-protective part of shadow. And yet I feel like that's a part I used to use very
So basically,
aggressively and
yeah,
self-protectively. And now I think almost all the time I choose it.
yeah,
And I use it as a way to connect and play and redirect attention when people are hurting. And yeah, I feel like maybe that's one of the examples of part that used to be something that was like a reactive and
yeah.
default.
So
And
now we need to tweak it onto. We now need to activate the perfectionism in a shined on shadow. So
yeah,
my perfectionism, because I used to try to be perfect.
yeah,
So I use my perfectionism to push my spiritual gifts,
yeah,
because I'm like, okay, there's another level there. I can go to another level. There's another level there. I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm just using that energy that I know, because perfectionism is a really strong driving force that we carry. And if you can utilize that, that can make you very successful.
yeah,
But the problem is, like, like anything has the shadow trait. The shadow trait will make you unsuccessful because you never get anything done.
mm-hmm.
Whereas using just the driving force of it will help you get a lot of things done.
Mm-hmm.
And the wisdom, when you've got the wisdom of your shadow, that's when you go, right, I know I'm using it for this. I'm not going to achieve perfection. I'm just going to achieve the next level.
Yeah,
Then I'm going to use that force for another thing. So we're always working on many different things. So you work on one thing, drive it to the next level, then you work on the next. Nothing ever gets to perfection, but things level up.
do you think it's that like that talking about how to integrate the shadows, like seeing it, owning it, and utilizing it in ways that are actually driving you and
They're
growing you?
using it in ways that are positive, because while it's still in shadow phase, we're using it in ways that are negative for us.
Yeah. I definitely see where my perfectionism has become a very powerful thing at times, and I can see where it still gets me fixated sometimes on things that aren't necessary.
Yeah, yeah. So that means you're still transitioning into the wisdom side.
So what do I do?
Keep practicing.
What is
But
the
so
practice?
so practicing. So when you catch yourself doing the nitty gritty,
Mm,
trying to be perfect about little things around that are unimportant, it's
mm,
about consciously stopping yourself, and then in the same moment redirecting that energy into something that's driving you forward. So, this is just off the top of my head. Let's say you've got some little knickknacks on your bedside table,
mm.
and a few of them are out of place.
Oh, I'm not like that.
No, that's why I said I'm just using that as an example. Like, I'm using that as like the really exaggerated version,
Got it.
and that you can't, that you're already running late. You've got to be out the house in 5 minutes. You're already running late, but you can't go out the house until you sorted that table out. That's where it's debilitating to your life. But on the flip side, when you use perfection, going right, um, if I don't do this getting ready the right way, I'm going to be late.
Yeah.
So then you just pull on the energy of perfectionism, but then forget everything else and just
Yeah.
use that drive to go right, clothes on, and you're using perfectionism for the steps. Right, first thing, I need to get showered. Next thing, do my hair. Next thing, do my makeup. But all those steps that you get in your head is perfectionism, because you're doing it in a very OCD way, but you're using that driving force to get through. Check done, check done, check done, out the door, and you're on time. And outside of that, you've ignored the bedside table, you've ignored the washing, you've ignored folding your undies.
Yeah, mine doesn't show up so much that way. I think it's more about like in my judgments of myself and others and like in because mine doesn't show up in the physical world as much. Like I've
Okay.
never been really regimented. I'm probably a little more towards the messy side. It's more about like holding myself and others as beings to an incredibly unrealistic standard. And like
Right.
again,
So you're okay. So yeah, it's that, because you were unseen essentially growing up. So now you're helping others try and be seen by trying to be perfect.
yeah, maybe.
So give me an example of a criticism that you'd see in others
Well,
that's
it's
really in yourself.
the closest mirrors, exactly. So the closest mirrors I've had have been the two men that I've attempted to partner with, like my ex-husband and my ex-boyfriend. And like just yeah, the standard of like their
Okay,
integrity.
can I stop you there?
Yeah.
Choose a woman that you've got a criticism of.
Oh, okay. So one I bump into recently is people who inject because that's something of my past where I was numbing and hiding from things. So when I
Okay.
see people really like injected,
All
I'm
right.
just
So that's the
one.
word I was looking for.
Yeah,
Numb.
yeah.
So during that, so do those, if you see them in the street, do they still trigger you?
Yes. Like I just kind of go, why? What? For what purpose do you do that? Because
So,
for
okay.
no,
So now I can ask that question for you.
yeah,
For what purpose are you still being numb?
yeah, avoiding pain.
Mm.
Yeah,
To go into the shadow is pain.
yeah,
So growth is painful. So therefore, why don't you want to grow?
because I don't know what it's going to look like.
So you fear the leap of faith.
I fear uncertainty. Yeah,
Yeah. Which brings us back to restriction of religion.
yeah,
Stay the same, stay in the box, do as we tell you.
yeah. And I
One of
changed my mind
us,
to some
one of
extent in
us,
my life.
one of us.
Probably not as much as I could, right? Like a lot of what we're creating after this course for a lot of us is going to be challenging in the
Yeah,
world. Like it's
growth.
different.
So here we go, right? So this is where we've actually got to the place where it's holding you back.
Yeah.
You're still numb, you still don't like pain, you don't like growth. How are you going to help others to do? Because as a counselor and a healer,
Mm,
whichever umbrella you decide you choose to sit under, you have to practice what you preach.
exactly. Yeah.
So if you fear change and growth and prefer to be numb,
Well, that's what's
who are
interesting
you
is
going to help?
I consciously fear it, right? Like, because I have grown so much and I'm like sitting with it. And it's almost like there's stuff like that don't know what you don't know that's just outside of my awareness that I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't like the amount of growth I've had over the last 7 months specifically where I've just really owned it is exponential. And yet I feel like with especially the fear thing, like I don't know what I'm hiding from. The other
So
stuff.
if you truly knew your shadow, and we've now shown you some of the shadow journey where you felt unheard around your mum, you felt unseen
Yeah, that's not new. I
in
just sort of view
but,
it.
but but you say it's not new, but you're not practicing what you preach, because if you truly understood that, you'd be able to look at those that have had the injections and sympathize with them, because you know somewhere in their life they are unheard and unseen.
Well, what happens in my mind is why am I assuming that that's why they're doing that? Maybe they're doing it because they love it and it's genuinely how they want to present in the world. And then a part of me or like something in me goes, well, is anyone
There's a lot of presumptions there.
yeah.
So this goes in. So uh,
Yep. How I see it is I see these people and I go, I want to understand why you're doing that because I'm immediately projecting the why I did it.
yeah, so you're still trying to understand yourself.
Say that in a different way.
You're still trying to. So because you're looking at them to try and understand them, you're projecting. You're really still trying to understand yourself, and you're trying to understand yourself while you're still wanting validation from your mum, because there's still numbness there, and there's still elements of being unheard and unseen,
Yeah.
and can I get really
Yes, please.
brutal?
Yeah, yeah.
So for because we can't see it on the screen, the reason you're quite wide, lower down,
Yeah, yeah.
you're trying to be seen.
Right. So speak to that.
So you're doing it visually as well. So rather than doing it with the injections, your body's doing it a completely different way now. You're extending out, going, "Hey, look at me."
Right. So that happened for my body when I was a teenager. That's something I created as a way to be seen.
Yep.
Right. And so what would you
So
suggest?
so there may have been a time when you was around 13 where there may have been talk around school with the boys liking big butts, maybe.
Yeah, that Sir Mix-a-Lot song was the jam and I was already getting booty, so just kept growing.
Yeah.
His ass since I was like
Yeah,
16.
because that's that way you knew you'd get seen, and you
Got it.
continued that.
Well, I've definitely used sexuality and my sexual energy to be seen
Yeah.
and get attention and to get validation.
So you can see how, so for those listening, like doing this shadow work, you can go into what it can be like a bit of a rat nest at times. You'll cross the paths, you'll go alongside each other, you'll think you're there, and then there's another rat's nest off somewhere else. And And it just shows how much why we can get so lost because we put pain on top of pain and link it with other pain and on top of pain on top of pain. Shadow work is a journey, and sometimes you have to work through it bit by bit. And I feel this is going the way it's going because I know my skills. I can normally do this within about 5 minutes, but this is being done this way for the purpose of this podcast,
Cool.
so that people can see the intricacies of it. Yeah, because I've got this beautiful gift where I can just delve into your deep soul, look at your soul contract, and find out why you chose it.
Yeah, can we do that?
No. Because it's fascinating. It's fascinating that it's fascinating because it's fascinating to those watching and those listening how we can create body dysmorphia around what would actually be psychologically wise a cliche thing. My mum didn't pay enough attention to me. But what if you're so here we can jump now.
Which is funny because both my parents have quite bootylicious booties too, and they both weren't seen very much by their parents in their wisdom.
So I'll pause because sometimes I need to pause to ask intuition if I'm allowed to say what I was about to say.
Okay.
Because sometimes it's a big jump and it takes you off the journey. So I don't feel I'm allowed to say that yet. Okay. So going into the soul side of things, doing a bit of a jump now. Mm-hmm. You would have chosen this and chosen to be unheard because really you chose a gift of being able to be solo without that being unseen and unheard. And I'm doing the quotes here because that's not what was really going on. Mm-hmm. On our soul contract, we choose our parents for certain life lessons, which are actually teachings for very powerful parts of ourselves, but we have to do the shadow part first. That basically spirit teaches us how not to do it first, so that when we're given the gift of it, we don't abuse it. Because it's any gift we're given is a powerful gift, and we can destroy others and ourselves with that if we don't use it correctly. That's the reason it's done that way. So you were given this gift of being able to be on your own, entertain yourself, so that you could do things like podcast, so that you could coach others on your own and be a sole contractor. Without that ability at a young age, you wouldn't have the skills to be a counselor and a coach and a mentor. You wouldn't have the skills and the strength to do podcasts. I chose to be solo as a kid. Like, my mum didn't really ignore me and neither did my dad. But I was quite a loner. I like my own company.
My mom is my biggest fan. So, and I'm very aware that I don't remember, I never felt neglected as a kid. I just think I always wanted more love and affection, and she was busy, right? Not. And so I'm curious because I actually think to my childhood, and I love being by myself. I used to just wander around and sing songs and tell stories, and I was very social, and I also loved just being in nature, creating worlds for myself and playing in these imaginary worlds.
So for me, where the imbalance is you're saying all those things, yet you said you wanted more love.
Yeah.
So all those things, that's a shit ton of love.
Yeah. Say that again.
So all those things you described, that's a shit ton of love. Shit ton of self-love.
Yeah.
So there's the perfectionism again.
Yeah, I think
wanting more is always perfectionism. So it's the inability to see things how they actually are. So just like I said, going back to the boat, the people that you saw that have got Botox and stuff, you're trying to guess why they're doing what they do, and it's the inability to see why. And to be honest, you don't need to know why. It's none of your business.
Yeah, I guess because I see myself judge, and then I go, well, why does that matter? They're on their journey. They like it. I think it comes from a place of me going, well, when I was numbing my forehead, I was numbing myself to so much of my internal reality. And so now when I see that, it's part of me wants to go to these people and be like, are you hiding from anything?
So numbing your forehead, you was blocking your third eye.
Yeah, totally. oh, that was at the time where I was like, I don't know how to end my marriage. So if I just keep like getting distracted by a job and sexual partners and like all so many things, like looking a certain way, like I just got busy and distracted. Me and my husband were both just like, let's hide from real depth. Um, so I now when I see people doing that, I want to be like, are you being authentic with yourself? Because maybe
Yeah.
I have a hard time marrying the two, that someone is completely authentic with themselves, loves themselves fully, and is injecting poison to look a
Yeah,
certain way.
but they might not be, but it's learning how to love those people, because the more you send love to those people, the more likely are they then to come and
No, and
they
that's
are to come and see you.
yeah, and I do like that's the thing. I see them and I love them, but I want to love them and like just be like, have you ever considered why you're doing that?
That's not loving them, that's judging them.
Yeah. And that's why I'm like, why do I do that? Like
Because
maybe
you know how you love them? You don't even notice them.
right.
In other words, you be their mirror, and what are they experiencing? Being unheard and unseen. So how
That's
can
it.
you
Right.
best love someone like that? By being their mirror and not seeing them and not hearing them. In other words, ignoring them. That's
Are
where
they,
you become their most powerful mirror.
so, but are you saying that everyone's doing that for that reason? That would be why
Not
anyone would.
everybody, but like in the intuitive flow.
Yeah.
So look, we've always got to keep any shadow work. You've always got to keep it specifically for you, because it's your shadow.
Okay.
So if you're seeing that in them,
Yeah.
because it's a direct reflection of you,
Yeah.
because they're reflecting you back at you and you're reflecting them back at them.
Yes.
So they're reflecting at you your judgment,
Yes.
you're questioning it. Well, the best way to help both people in that situation work on it is to ignore them, because then what you're practicing is non-judgment.
Yeah.
So that's the positive of that's the flip of judgment.
Yeah.
And you're being their reflection by making them feel unseen and unheard, because that's their shadow and they need it brought to the surface to be reminded that even in public, people are going to ignore them and it's going to trigger them. And that's the pure love a walking healer can do, is just trigger someone without even knowing that you're triggering them.
Mm.
I do it all the time. I accidentally trigger people, and I've said one word, and like I triggered a friend the other day, and I said, and they was going on about something. I said, didn't even use that word. So
Mm.
that's your shit, because you put that word in the conversation. I didn't use that word. So that my intention was not that. Because if it was, because they knew me well enough that if that was my intention, I'd use that word. Because I'm very direct and very truthful. If I mean something, I'll use the word that it means.
Got it.
So if I use, and because like the way I work as well, if I don't use a particular word and that person does, I automatically mean no, that's their shadow coming to the surface,
Mm.
because they've distorted what they heard into their
Yeah.
shadow.
I see that for myself when I say something back. So what I'm hearing from this is, and then I go, okay, so why did I hear that? Why did I choose to make that interpretation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like, we see everything through our filter. We hear everything through our filter, and our filter carries all our pain and all our shadow and all our positivity.
Mm.
Just again, going back to if you say yay, if I'm in like a big intuitive mode, I would feel that slither going, okay, there's something behind that yay, because the energy of it, because I feel energy, the energy of it would wobble in my system,
That's cool.
and it would wobble it. So, like I said, this is why I get so. Actually, what it does, even you just talking about it, it does wobble my system, and then I'm able. Then what happens is the energy creates an image through my third eye, and
Yeah.
I'm given an image, and what it showed me was this cone of light with a black slither in the middle. So there's a tiny bit of pain behind that yay.
Yeah.
So then I'm able to go, okay, what's really going on with that yay?
Yeah.
And and it's the same with anything. So when people actually change the word, I'm on it. Why did you choose to use that word? Because I didn't use that word.
We've got to witness that a lot with the NLP community, where
Yeah,
people are saying they're like, "That's not what I said,"
yeah,
and it's not. That's what you heard, and
yeah.
it's just wild when you're like, "Oh, what did I distort there, and for what purpose?" Right?
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And because we're this is where a quick delve into quantum physics. It's we're looking at the world through our own filters, in where we're actually walking in our own matrix, and everyone's in their own matrix, and our matrix is just cross at times, and then there's a Venn diagram in the middle where we're mirroring each other and our shadows.
So where to next?
So I'm just seeing what I'm being shown. Because at the moment, I don't feel there's a lot of work to be done on your dad. A lot of that's sorted.
Yeah.
It's almost like they show me almost like a blank sheet. There's still the sheet there, but there's nothing written on it. So that means there's still something because there's still a sheet there. There doesn't need to be a sheet. Which side of your neck did you just scratch?
My right.
Okay. As I was saying that, you scratched your neck. That's very interesting.
Yeah, on the right side.
Which is right, which is the masculine side.
Totally.
So that means there's a little bit of annoyance there still.
Yeah, and it was an
Uh,
inch.
yeah, the actual, you've got an itch to scratch still with your dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And we're scratching it at the
yeah,
moment.
yeah. Which is why the page is blank. There's nothing written on it.
It's essentially what the work that we're in together is. I'm like, Dad, how do we just both fully be ourselves and love each other through that? Like,
Yeah.
let's not. I don't want to make you anything. I don't want to make you to make me anything. Let's just witness each other's life.
Okay, so he's already given you the answer to your mother problem.
Yeah. What? I'm like, yeah, I thought I understood it, and I'm like, maybe not.
So basically, you listen to what you just said.
Yeah.
You said about, you said, you and your dad are saying, why can't we just allow each other to be what we want to be?
Mm.
And you're learning that, and you're almost there because the sheet is blank. It's only a minor little itch.
Mm.
Yet we've just spent half an hour probably going deep into a deep itch with your mum, and your dad's already given you the answer. You're already almost at the answer.
Yeah.
Map it across.
I feel like my mom, I'm so much more comfortable being fully self-expressed with my mom in respect of telling her like about she listens to everything I've ever created. She's like my number one fan on my social media, whereas my dad just doesn't even want to look at anything that sits outside of his religious belief set.
Yeah, and that's him. Remember, so this is where we come back to right at the beginning where I said we're given tools for our life.
Yeah.
He's meant to be religious his whole life because that's what his soul is learning. His soul is learning constriction
and I think
and
I've got
strong
that.
belief on.
And it what doesn't work is what I've said is like, Dad, I adopt your model of the world. I've even been in it so I can understand it. I love you for
So
it. He just
you
doesn't
don't
want
need
me
to adopt it.
to look at mine.
You
Sorry,
don't.
as in I can understand it, I can perceive it, as in I accept it, not adopt it.
That's all you need to do. You just need to accept. You don't need to understand it. You don't need to delve into it. You don't need to adopt it. You just
Accept.
have to go like, well, my dad's my dad. That's great.
Yeah. And
Just how you could do that to the people that have had this
so
stuff.
help me with this one, because what happens there is I do that and he tries to convert me and pray for me and make me read scripture every time I go home.
Because he doesn't look. He isn't at the level of where you're at.
Yeah.
So that's why you got to love him. It's like
Part of me resents that because I'm like, look, I let you pray with me. I let you read scripture to me, and I smile and I close my eyes and I get it. That's your world. And you never ask me about mine.
right. So now I'm going to jump to the future
Yeah.
because this is a beautiful thing about my gift. I can do this and I can give people time.
Okay.
And time is a very valuable thing to give. Imagine if your dad passed tomorrow and you missed all those moments that you could have had with him just listening to scripture.
Yeah.
So next time you see him and he says, "Oh, can you read those scriptures with me?" Just do it. That's his joy. Go and stand it. You don't have to have the energy of religion behind it. You don't have to accept it, as in accept the religious indoctrination.
Yeah.
What you're there to do is to have time with your dad that he enjoys. There's an episode in The Simpsons where Lisa and Homer, and Lisa gets to see Homer through her eyes.
Yeah.
It's the one where they go into a.
I don't watch it.
No, it's worth watching though. It really is because The Simpsons can get very deep at times.
I've seen this. Yeah.
It's the one where they go into a float tank, and that's when she learns to accept Homer for who he is.
Yeah.
And that's because what he does, because she's moaning, going, "Oh, why you brought me to the derby and blah blah blah." And then when she goes into he's going, "Why is she complaining? I brought her to here because I just want to spend time with her."
I think
And
I've
that's
been
what it's about. That's his way of joy, and he wants to share that joy with you. And he's getting annoyed that you don't want to accept that joy.
Yeah. I think I've been pretending that he has to accept my model of the world for me to accept his, and wanting it to be both.
Yeah. Whereas if you just both accept each other's model of the world, look, he may never get to your level, as in, he may never get to that level of understanding and acceptance that you've got. That's okay.
Yeah.
He's got his mission, you've got yours.
Ugh. Yeah. There's definitely ways I try to like open his mind and change him and not just accept how he is. And that sucks.
So when my mum was on her last legs and we had conversations, I knew she didn't understand my world,
Yeah.
but I could understand hers.
Yeah.
So I just kept the conversations at basically little gossip about what was going on in town. I hated gossip,
I hate that shit.
but that's what helped her be happy. And the very, very last thing I said to my mum before she passed was, I love you.
Yeah.
There was nothing left to be said. There was nothing left to be done. It was all peaceful and calm.
Yeah.
I mean, there was past stuff that turned up after she had passed, and lucky to be in a medium, I could sort it. So, but the same with my dad. Like, there was a little bit left unsaid with my dad because he was sick for the last 3 months, and prior to that, he was quite deaf, so it was hard to talk to him on a physiological level.
Yeah.
But again, we kept it simple. He didn't want to understand who I was, and I knew he was never going to understand, and I accepted that.
Mm.
I wasn't angry at him. I was just going, I was just enjoyed his. I found the love and joy in his phone calls that lasted about 3 or 4 minutes, and then anything depth started to come up. Right, I'm off now. And it just make me chuckle. Go, yeah, he's running again.
Yeah. That's relatable.
So I ended in joy. I wasn't angry or pissed off because he wasn't accepting my model of the world.
Yeah.
But if you get to that point and you don't accept his model of the world at his level, you're going to regret that.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. It was like, I'm almost there and I'll keep doing this if you can accept mine. And
Yeah.
that's so,
So now, interesting enough, this is bringing up fear again in you
yeah.
because you're fearing the religion, but you're more powerful than religion.
Mm.
So because you're more powerful than religion, you can still listen to it, but you don't have to take it on board in one ear and out the other.
I wonder if for
And
me,
you
it
might
feels,
find you'll have a favorite scripture that's actually really deep
oh,
and meaningful.
I get a lot of value from
Yeah.
yeah, there's so much wisdom in that book.
So
And
where's the issue then?
that my dad believes that he's going to pass on this material plane and go to heaven, and that I'm going to hell, and that he's so worried. I'm like, Dad, if you choose to believe that we get to spend it together, what if that's the belief you take in when you
But
pass?
you're still trying to change his model of the world.
Yeah, because yes, I am. He wants so badly for me to come to heaven with him, that his whole life purpose is to try to get me to come to heaven with him. And it's like, in that, how I hear that is he wants me to be inauthentic. Like, I'm like, I could lie to you and
But
pretend
well, you could challenge him a little bit. This is just,
a
you
little,
can
like
reject
do it.
this or not. You could say, look, I've already done enough, Dad. There's no way I'm going to heaven. So stop
Oh
trying.
no,
You're wasting
that
your
was
breath.
10 years ago. I already tried all that. He doesn't believe that, right? His model is Jesus forgives. So he's like, don't worry, keep on your spiritual journey. At some point, you'll come back. And I'm like, Dad, that sucks to hear, is that I'll like, it feels like what you're saying is one day I'll be like, I don't know.
Some things you can't change in people. But here's the thing, right?
That's what
How
scares
do
me.
you how do you change
Like,
those in your immediate circle?
change myself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you change and work on yourself, what's going to happen?
Well, that's it. And I'm like, I
He's
could
going to
just
change.
get him to believe me. I'd like,
But you've got to change for you according to your journey, not changing in the hope that it changes him in a certain way, because
yeah,
that's still not accepting his model of the world. And then therefore you're inauthentically changing. You're changing for someone else's purpose, not yourself.
that's what I feel like he wants me to do. And I'm like, I can't do that. I can only be me.
So it's about finding a way to get around it. Just say, yeah, I'm working on stuff, Dad. It's not a linear thing. So you've got to do it in the flow, and I've got to follow, path didn't just Jesus just didn't walk in a straight path
Yeah.
and figure this shit out.
Yeah. We have that dialogue often.
You
We
know,
got in a beautiful
Jesus
relationship.
died for the cause. Come on, Dad, we're not going to do that. So you can't do that in this modern world, although you can spiritually. But
Or his belief set is we don't have to because Christ did. We just
yeah,
accept Christ.
yeah, and just say, but we still have our challenges of figuring stuff out, and it's not that easy. So more than likely I'll get there at some point, but I'll do it in my time, not your time. You have to accept that I'm going to figure it out in my way. just like I'm allowing you to figure things out your way.
So we've had all of those dialogues. In his mind, there's nothing to figure out. He's already presented me truth. He's just waiting for the day that I accept it again.
Oh, okay. So he's forcing his truth.
Yeah. Christ is the way, the truth, and the light, and no
Yeah.
one comes to the Father except through him. So in his model of the world, I'm living in darkness and I'm going to hell. And he doesn't want to get to the end of his life and not have all his children come with him to paradise.
So what is he choosing then? Why is he choosing pain?
Well, depends what you want to get into there with his own history.
Well, no, but it's just about going, what's he reflecting back at you that's yours?
Yeah.
Because he's saying you're living in darkness, and at somewhere you're believing that. Otherwise, it
Yeah.
wouldn't trigger you.
Yeah.
So where are you choosing to believe to live in darkness?
Mm.
Hell does not exist.
Mm.
That's my belief.
Yeah.
If you believe in hell, that's great.
No, I don't.
For me personally, I just look at it and go, if you believe in a vengeful God, you need to change your God.
Right. Like, why would you choose that?
God's a karmic God, believes in balance. So if we've had a past life as a murderer, then we have to live a life as a murdered to understand both sides of the coin. That's full acceptance. That's karma, that we live both lives and understand it in both ways. That's how you accept love, because then you can love each other on the highest perspective. So, in a strange way, if hell did exist, it would be Earth.
Yeah. In what we create and
But the
suffer.
thing is, the Bible's a parable anyway, and a bunch of stories and metaphors and all kinds of different
Yeah.
meanings. It's not a literal thing.
And from their religious perspective, portions are literal and portions are
Yeah.
metaphorical.
So, in other words, they choose the Bible according to what they want to believe.
That's the human experience,
Yeah,
right?
and that's the paradox. Now, this is our religion, but we'll only choose the bits so we can condemn you for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that, again, that is just their belief and their limiting beliefs. And
Mm.
all beliefs are limiting
Mm.
until you outgrow it. And when you outgrow it, there's another belief beyond that, and that is limiting.
Yeah.
I'm currently limited with my gifts, and my gifts are stupidly expansive, and I'm still limited by them.
Mm.
And there's still more levels to go into, and then there's more levels after that, more levels after that, more levels after that. And it scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, I bet.
Just like shadow scares the crap out of us.
Yeah.
So you think like when we touched on your dad, that's a blank page, that's the one that got you to the emotions of release.
Speak to that.
In other words, it made you cry.
Yeah.
Whereas all the time with your mum, you didn't get to release.
Mm.
So therefore, your dad's got the closest teaching to your shadow, but he's the one with the most pain because he's your biggest test for acceptance.
So the backstory there is my dad, when my parents split up when I was 6, my dad left. And that was the first memory I have, conscious memory of my childhood, is essentially of like him getting in his car, saying, I love you, and then driving away. And I've seen how I've created relationships since then where I was looking to like rewrite that story of like not being abandoned and trying to like earn love and assuming that when someone says they love you, like my father and I, he was my favorite person. He was my superhero. And then he
Which is
left.
why he's your biggest reflection.
Yeah. And we're very similar. Like we activate each other because we're so similar.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
and you're supposed to be the wise one now with your gifts and skills to look beyond projections and perceptions, and you're still holding yourself back by choosing not to learn because you still want to be that little girl to your daddy. You still want to be daddy's little girl.
Totally. And then when
Right.
that doesn't happen, I play that out in relationships
Let
instead.
me give you a bit of advice.
Yes, please.
This is the thing that I sorted out with my mum during prac when I
Mm,
was talking to her from beyond. She
mm,
said, "You're always going to be my baby." I don't like being a baby. I don't want to be a baby. But when she said it in a different way, in a different energy, I understood it. So I'm always going to be happy to be my mum's baby.
mm,
That doesn't mean I'm a baby. It just
mm,
means on her model of the world, because I'm the fifth of five, I'm always going to be her baby no matter how old I am. And for whatever reason, it took me 50 years to figure that shit out. So I
mm,
could let it go. So then that means if I'm, when I meet a partner and she calls me a baby, I'm not going to get triggered
mm.
because I've got nothing there for it to trigger. So likelihood I'm going to meet a partner who's going to probably use it as a
Endearing term.
endearing term. I probably still won't like that. I go, nah, mum called me a baby. That's just wrong.
Oh,
So
baby.
it's not triggering. It's more like, no, that just won't fit.
Don't love it.
I
Yeah.
actually like doll. I actually like the Aussie doll for some reason.
Oh, that makes me want to throw up a little bit
Yeah, for
down.
some reason I like it. I don't know why. But anyway, so let's map that across to your situation with your dad. You are always going to be daddy's little girl, no matter how old you are.
Yeah, he speaks to that. I love
Yeah.
that.
So that
And
means,
like, you're
so
my little
when you
girl, and
truly
like
own
she
that,
sings
you're
about
not
you.
then going to play daddy's little girl and you'll play daddy's adult little girl. Play into your wisdom. You're more wise than he is. Stop allowing him to constrict you
Yeah, both my parents say that to me lately. They're like, "Who's the parent here? Why are you so wise?" And I'm like,
because you've evolved. You've got the journey of evolution.
yeah. And I think, like, to be really frank, I'm like fucking pissed off. I'm like, this isn't supposed to be my job. Like,
Yes, it is.
I
You know
know.
why?
Yeah,
Let's
like,
see.
but let's.
You know that thing earlier I said I wasn't going to talk about.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I can.
Okay.
So I've got a working theory that this is now proving correct,
Yeah.
as in energetically true,
Yeah.
because I don't do the human right or wrong because that's a duality,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
and we're allowed to play into that as humans because it's just showing us part of our shadow.
yeah.
But when I get given intuitive downloads around theories that could be just be theories for me,
Yeah, yeah.
you can accept it or not. Essentially, like we're generational breakers. You've heard that term,
Yeah, of course.
right? So, are you also fully aware that we can only heal what's ours?
Say that again.
We can only heal what's ours.
No.
You can't heal anybody else's shit. You can only heal your own.
Okay.
You understand that?
No, I don't think so. In my mind, what I've heard of intergenerational trauma is like that we take it on and then it's ours to heal and like trace back.
Okay, so in the healer community, we can only heal our own stuff. We can't heal anybody else's. We can guide people on their journey, but we can't heal it because it's not ours.
And is what ours though is are we do we inherit some of that and that becomes ours?
No, because look, you think about it, right? So I'm going to step you through this.
Thanks.
If you take on board trauma from your mum,
Yeah.
that's not your trauma. So therefore, you can't heal it because it's not yours.
So what do I do with what I've taken on?
So here's the thing. What I wasn't going to say earlier because it wasn't the right time, and now it is.
Yeah.
So I've got a theory that 7 lifetimes ago,
Yeah.
we were the ones that because it's okay. I've missed a bit. I've missed a step. At some point, the trauma had to stop. It's not hasn't been passed on since day dot. Adam and Eve didn't have the original trauma and just passed that on forever.
Okay.
Using the Bible reference of only there being two and then everyone being below them on the family tree.
Sure.
So that means somewhere in a past life, someone would have had to create the original trauma
Yeah.
for it to be passed on generationally and then healed. So my theory is if we can only heal our stuff, because if we take on board someone else's, we carry it in our body until we give it back.
Right.
Right? Because so therefore we were the ones that created the original trauma. That's why we're the generational breakers, because we're the ones that created it in the first place.
Okay.
And it was 7 lifetimes ago. Now, that's not 7 concurrent lives.
Yeah.
It's just 7 lifetimes on that particular life's journey. So your fear journey started 7 lifetimes ago where you created it. Then you passed it through the generations and picked it up again this life to heal it generationally. That's what's called a life lesson, and life lessons last multiple lifetimes.
But wouldn't it be more fun to just like keep blaming my parents and my grandparents?
But then you won't grow.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Ultimately, if you went back through your family tree and great grandpa, but again, it's not 7 concurrent lives, and it's not 7 linear lives either.
Okay.
So you could have had a grandparent who had a daughter who passed it on to a cousin, who then passed it on to her daughter, who then passed it on to a niece.
So do you think like when we look at intergenerational trauma and like inherited DNA responses and things, like in my mind, as I've learned about that, I've gone like, oh, I know my grandmother's story. I know my both my parents' story, especially around like
Yeah,
shame, fear, sexuality. I'm like, that's all
but who did they learn that off?
yeah. society.
And then who did they learn that of? And who did they learn that of? The
So
thing
is
is,
it,
everything's energy, right?
yeah,
So therefore, fear is energy.
yeah.
So it getting passed through DNA, well, DNA is just energy. And on our soul contract, we choose what life lessons we've got. We can't run another person's soul contract. We can only run our own.
Yeah.
So in our soul contract, we've said, right, I'm going to clear fear in this life. It had to be our fear originally. So therefore, it had to be your fear. You as the original creator, and my current working theory is it's 7 lifetimes,
Okay.
not concurrent and not linear. So there would have been 7 lifetimes. So you'd have had 6 previous lifetimes where you carried through that life lesson of fear until you passed, until it was time to generationally break it. And the reason it's happening right now in this linear timeline is because we're Mother Earth evolving into 5D. So we've got to clear a lot of karma.
So when you're speaking about giving it stuff back that's not yours, like how do I know what's mine? Like I feel like from such a young age, I've always been one of those people who wants to hear everyone's stories. That's part of why I started podcasting. I want to like understand people's experience and give them a place to share it. And yet then I seem to have in the past taken on, like I know so much about my dad and my mom and my grandma.
Yeah.
And it's like I feel like this responsibility to like heal myself and like that might support them or
Yeah.
let go.
So in this particular life, we are breaking many generational patterns. In other words, we are clearing many past lives so that we can raise the vibration of Mother Earth, bring more light onto the planet, and help her evolve. Because we are symbiotic with Mother Earth. So when she shines light, we have to shine with her. When she's releasing, we have to release. And we've chosen to come down at this time because it's a massive, massive upgrade. And it's, if you class Mother Earth as a theme park, it's like Christmas, Easter, Halloween all in one show, and it's never happened before. So that's why 7.6 billion people came down at this time, because it's fun. It's like hell's having the anniversary party, and the devil's finally coming along to this one. He's going to be the keynote speaker, you know. So
So
it's
what
that
do I
kind of
do
thing.
with all this fear? I'm like, how do I
Well, you've released some of it
have I?
with the tears,
Oh, I cry often.
because it means it's often at the surface.
Say that again. Sadness or
Because
fear?
it means it's often at the surface.
Yeah, like I spoke to you about seeing fear and being like, I'm so aware of my fear of like my addiction to scarcity and my fear of abundance and my fear of receiving in respect of love. Like I've that's the
And they're
fears.
all currently locked in that book that your dad reads.
What's currently locked in there?
All of those things you just said are all locked in the book that your dad reads.
Locked, did you say?
Locked in that book, yeah. You
Okay.
accept your dad and his scriptures and just have joy with him and just play, because you know he's not able to grow, so then you have to placate him to fit in with his world.
Yeah, I think I like don't want that to be okay.
Why? Why can't that be okay?
I think what I'm projecting is like I'm like I have to keep evolving and being uncomfortable and accepting a world that isn't like
You accept your cat's world?
yeah.
I mean, it's very limited. They meow, they hassle you when they're
Yeah.
not feeding,
And
they
yet like
scratch you,
my dad
they're a
is
pain
more
in the arse. It's still very limited.
my dad is more intelligent. I'm like, Dad, you don't get to stop growing. And I think really that's about
But
myself.
maybe what if his life journey, that's his growth level?
Oh, yeah, well, maybe that's my projection of me being like, maybe this is my growth level. Can I just
Let
stop?
me give you an example. Like the amount I've grown in the amount of abilities I've got, I can still accept most people.
Yeah.
I've just been corrected. I can accept all people because that's what I'm growing into, to accept all people. Because if I can't, how can I help them if I'm just judging everybody compared to myself
And
and
you
my
want
abilities to grow
to grow,
and my
right?
ability to see energy and feel energy? If I judged everyone to my standards, I wouldn't. I'd might as well just be a hermit in a cave and be one of those strange myth stories from the future.
And you still want them to grow though.
Yeah, but I also accept, like, if I tune into them and I get told no, they're not meant to grow anymore. Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Then I'll accept them for who they are, and I'll meet them from, because I'm the bigger one.
Is it
I'm the
possible
more
that
powerful. So if I'm the more powerful, then I've got to meet them where they are. You think about Jesus. He met people at where they were, not where he was. Sometimes that halfway is over here.
Yeah.
For me to meet people halfway, I've got to come a long way, a lot further than they have, because it's easier for me to drop down than it is for them to rise.
Totally.
Okay, so you understand that, so why can't you do that with your dad?
I think I don't maybe I'm just having the realization now that like I don't think he's at capacity. Like I don't believe that. I'm like, you're
No, you
not.
don't want to believe that because he's your dad.
Yeah.
In the long run, I had to believe that about my mum and dad because they were at their limit, and which was nothing wrong with that. They were both beautiful people.
It.
They raised five great kids. They lived wonderful lives.
And you know what? That's
But
so
me personally, I wanted something bigger. But if I held them to that standard, I would look at them as going crap.
but that's so what I do. Like I've done that in my marriage for so long where I was like, babe, we're holding each other back. Like I want to keep growing it and you've
But a
got to keep
partnership in a relationship is very different because you've got so in relationships, in regards to romantic relationships, this is your vibration. These are the parameters.
sure.
Anything inside of that is magnetic, so therefore goes. As soon as it goes out as that, it becomes a push.
Yeah.
We are magnetic beings. Our aura is a magnetic field.
Okay.
People that aren't resonating at our same magnetic field, the poles,
Yeah.
will push rather than connect.
Yeah.
That's why we're attracted to people.
Yeah.
Whereas so out of that resonance it becomes a push. So if you act, so that's why you hear the term outgrowing people.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So
We raise up, but you'll never outgrow your parents because we chose them as a relationship for our whole life, and we chose them for certain lessons. And the lesson that you chose with your dad is one of acceptance.
mm,
And until you accept him, you'll never accept yourself because it's a projection.
oh, who?
So all the places where you're not accepting him and his journey means you're not accepting you and your journey,
Yeah.
which is why you are holding yourself back.
Oh, I like that. Well, that's easy.
Yeah.
So how do you think that shows up for me when it comes to relationships? Like that's why I ask, like that's what I've said to both my partners where I'm like, I could see in a way I wanted to stay because I was like, if I'm here, then I don't have to keep growing. And yet I could see myself growing and being like,
Right.
come with me, come with me.
So here's a bit of a sledgehammer for you.
Yeah.
This is the great thing about shadow work. The sledgehammer always comes out sooner or later. So until you can properly have a functioning relationship with your dad where you can just accept him, and it means you have to come down to his level to accept him.
Can you speak to that? That coming down to someone's level sounds dangerous to me.
Why? All you're doing is accepting his model of the world and not changing yours.
So what does come down to his
Because
level
he
mean?
can't come up to your level and change.
Right.
He's too rigid in his beliefs. He hasn't got the capability of change. You've got the capability of change, so it's easier to
How can
spend
you
time
know
with
that?
him. Eh?
How can I know that? Or how can you know that? Like what if he does have the capability to change and I'm just not
Because everything you've told me so far is suggesting otherwise.
it's not a choice?
They had the choice when they signed the soul contract and came down here to learn the lesson of their soul. That's
So
a whole podcast on its own, so we
yeah,
can't really
so
delve
but
into
I've been
that.
stuck here multiple times where I'm like, maybe that's the capacity of my growth. And then I've gone, no, I'm holding myself back. Fuck that. I'm gonna keep
Yeah,
going.
yeah,
How do
but
I know my dad's
but the
not there?
thing is, like, your dad is your biggest mirror, therefore your biggest test. Therefore, he's teaching you the most powerful lesson. He's teaching you acceptance, to accept everybody at their level. Because you're so expansive, it means you have to shapeshift into their level to accept them for who they are.
Yeah,
And
and
then
then what I
so
found
so
over
what that means is, so let me clarify it a bit clearer.
yeah.
If you're with your dad for half an hour, you only have to accept the limits of the Bible for half an hour. Then once you leave, you can be back to yourself and your expansive self. It's half an hour to spend time with your dad. What's wrong with that?
Because it feels
That
inelastic.
that's because you don't fully understand it yet.
Understand.
Understand that you're coming into his model of the world to
No, I
share
do.
love with him at his level because he can't step up into your model of the world and accept it at your level. So
Oh,
therefore, you've got to be the bigger person because you're the most expansive person. Therefore, the wisest person. That's wisdom for you. You've got to move more than others.
I want to clarify. Are you saying it's different with our parents than, like, for example, my last two partners? And I want to be shown if this is inaccurate. What I felt like was I kept evolving spiritually and exploring and expanding my ways of being in the world. And then was like, I want to share this with you. Like, I want, like, there's
So,
more.
yeah. So as you were born, you chose a full length with your parents,
Okay.
right? So that means it's quite rigid in that way, in that regard.
Okay.
when you choose relationships, you're already an adult, more or less. Well, when you choose romantic relationships, you're 17 onwards.
Mm.
Well, for you to remain in that relationship, you've both got to grow within that parameter.
Yeah.
So, whereas that doesn't apply to parents,
I
it's
think
like the
that's where my
parameter of your parents is your whole life.
I
So
think
this is the so let's have a look, Veronica. So
yeah.
this is like this is, let's say this is 5 years.
Mhm.
You'll be in that after 5 years, you'll outgrow it and you'll split.
Yeah.
This, in regards to your parents, this is 90 years. You're always going to be in that parameter. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Yeah. So it means there's always going to be an attraction to your parents
Right.
in regards to life lessons.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas partners, that's not always going to be the case unless on your sole contract you've decided to be with one partner your whole life. So my sister, my elder sister, married. I think she was about 20 when she got married to my brother-in-law. They're still together. So their parameters, so that to them is, I think they've currently been married for 30 years
Yeah.
or 40, nearly 40. So that's the parameter. And it's still bigger. So their parameter could be six. My parents were married for 65 years before my mum passed.
Mm.
So their parameter was 65 years.
Mm.
So there was always in that. No matter what they did, it was always within. They always grew together.
Yeah.
So what your dad's teaching you acceptance, until you accept yourself, you're going to struggle in relationships because at some point you're always going to do this
I do
because you
that.
will not accept your partner.
No.
There's the sledgehammer. Your dad is teaching you how to have the perfect relationship, but you don't want to accept his world.
So clarify that for me. Are you saying that and I are you saying that I need to accept and stay within the confines of other
No, so
people?
basically, what he's teaching you acceptance, which is really teaching you to accept yourself. So how are you going to accept a partner to accept you if you can't accept yourself? Because all you're going to attract is mirrors on how to accept yourself.
Totally.
And the thing is, your dad's teaching you that lesson, not the partners.
Yes, I think where I'm getting stuck is okay, I'm trying to map it across. What I hear you saying is like come down to my dad's level, and I'm like, I'm not going to do that with a partnership. Like I'm not
No,
going
no,
to.
you don't know. It's not about partnership. No, you're learning the life lesson from your dad. He's teaching you acceptance, and how you're going to accept your dad is by coming down to his level.
And then with partners, do the same.
No, because once you've learned that lesson, what is really teaching you, what your dad is really teaching you, is how to accept yourself. So once you start coming down to your dad's level, you'll start realizing how to accept yourself. There's wisdoms and inner teachings that you haven't accessed yet because you haven't dropped down to your dad. You're still trying to change it.
Mm.
You still believe you can change, therefore you're still trying to change it.
That's what I do in my relationships too.
Oh yeah, funny that.
That's what no, that's what I'm trying to figure out, like where it
Yeah.
marries and where it doesn't.
So once you accept yourself and start learning those lessons, you'll attract a relationship where they accept you. So then you don't need to change them because you accept each other.
How does that look for growth though? Like I
So
think
in relationship, you still grow. You got to remember, you're the only time you're not going to grow is if you're with your dad for half an hour. But
yeah,
actually, you are going to grow because you're going to start learning pieces of wisdom that's hidden within that half an hour that you didn't
yeah,
realize was there.
that does happen. Yeah.
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 What they're showing me is digging for gold. When you dig for gold, you dig down.
Yeah.
Wisdom is down. Inner work is down. So you have to come down to meet your dad. So what's down? Gold is down.
Fine.
You're seeing it the wrong way. You're seeing down as a bad thing.
Yeah, well hell is down.
Yeah, because what's shadow? The shadow work is hell. That's where all the wisdom is.
Oh,
That's where all
gross.
the lessons are hidden. They're not going to hide it in heaven. It'd be too easy to find. Life wouldn't be fun. It'd be dull and boring. Oh yeah, little. Yeah. It's like you wake up as a 3-year-old. Right, figured all that shit out. Right, I'm fine. I'm just going to enjoy life. Boring.
That sounds great. I'm in for
Oh,
that.
this is most. It's like going on the teacups that don't spin at the theme parks.
I hid in
You just
like
basically sat in a big cup, and
I
once you've
hid
done
in
that once, it's just not fun.
I hid in a hedonistic lifestyle for a while. So I'm like, are you sure? Because that felt fun for a while. Like, you want to just go on these rides and yeah.
Yeah, but afterwards, when your morality caught up with you, was it fun?
No,
No,
Well, and
exactly. Thank you very much.
it was empty and avoidant. Like it was
Yeah.
not the depths of connection that I
Yes.
need
Yeah.
to
But
have.
that's what I mean. When you hit the shadow of it, it ain't fun because you have to deal with shame, guilt, and all those shadow emotions.
Yeah. Well, and it was like the whole existential kink concept, right? It was like really just like getting off on what I was avoiding and really
Yeah.
being true to what's the shadow there. What was I
But the
feeling?
thing is, if you just accepted your journey, it would have only been fun.
I feel like in my head, I'm like, how can I accept my journey when I don't know what it is? And then I'm like, that's because I don't need to. I just be
Your
honest.
journey is what did we say earlier on? Your journey is about becoming you.
Yeah, I believe
And
that.
right now, you're avoiding accepting yourself. You look how much your body's moving and you're trying hard not to understand. And I know you can understand because you're very intelligent.
All right, tell me again. What am I missing?
We're going around in circles.
Well, not with me. That doesn't make sense.
Spend half an hour with your dad and look for the wisdom.
Yeah, right. And the fear?
That's where yeah, because if you feel fear when you sat with your dad, that's what you have to sit and push through.
No, I don't feel fear with him. I mean, I feel
No, but
like
when it comes up with all the religious stuff and you have the fearful thoughts about, oh, blah, 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 that's what you push through because you got to go, no, I was only with my dad for half an hour. I don't have to accept that. I don't
yeah,
have to accept those indoctrinations that he's accepted.
yeah, I get that. And like we have all the dialogue around that, and I still let him read scripture and we pray, and I go, sweet, thank you. I really valued that
Yeah.
time with you.
So next time you're with him, don't try and change him. Just allow him to control the half an hour and go, right, we're going to do this. We're going to talk about this. Yeah, that'd be great, Dad. I love spending time with you.
Just with him, or I got to do that with everybody?
Not just with him, because he's the teacher. Because he's your biggest teacher. He's your biggest mirror. So you learn to do it with him. You're practicing a new habit. Because what you're doing is actually practicing acceptance.
Yeah.
That's your shadow. That's your fear. That's what's holding you back.
Acceptance of myself.
Acceptance of self. So if you spend time with your dad, because here's the paradox, spend time with your dad saying, yeah, I'd love to hear some scriptures with you. That'd be great. I just love spending time with you because you're my dad.
We do that, and then after I try to change it.
Yeah. So don't do the after bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Just do
And
the first bit and go, thanks, Dad. I love spending time with you. I'll see you again soon.
he's in Canada, so
And what's that got to do with the price of fish? We've got Zoom.
like, all right, so he can read with the Bible through the Zoom. And so you think that's the core of the fear? Like,
Yeah.
feels too easy.
It usually is. It's just we put a lot of complications in the way and we overthink it.
So what about like when I was speaking to like fear of relationships? Like, can you support me to map that across? Like, or fear of money, like that receiving
So
that.
how can you accept money if you don't accept yourself? How can you accept
Ah,
relationships if you can't accept yourself? How can you accept anything if you don't accept yourself?
I get that, and I'm struggling to see how accepting. So you're saying my dad is my mirror. To accept him will allow me to accept myself, and
As
that's
soon as
it.
you accept okay, so as soon as you accept who you are, that's going to trigger quite a few things. One, you're going to actually going to know your worth
Yeah,
and you're going to value your worth. That's going to improve your money. It's
yeah.
also going to improve your relationships.
And you're saying by hanging out with my dad and not changing him, that will do that.
Yep.
No, I want something more complicated.
Nope, ain't that way. But how is this not complicated? We've just spent 2 hours running around in circles,
Oh my God,
delving
just
through
choose
your
my
shadow
dad.
for a
That's too
podcast.
easy. I love my dad. That's too easy. That's
Yeah,
it.
but you say you love your dad, but you've been trying to change him, so you clearly don't love him.
Well, let me
You
get
say you do, but your actions don't say that.
your perception on this then, or perspective. Like what I feel I don't love is that I feel he's trying to change me. And are you saying that my own fear of myself is what I want to change
Yeah,
me?
but the thing is, he is trying to change you because he doesn't love himself. Be the
No,
bigger person, but you can't change that journey. That's his journey to own and figure out. And remember, how do we change others? Because we change ourselves. So if you accept yourself, what's he going to do? He's going to accept himself at the level he's meant to accept himself. And you'll accept that because you've learned acceptance.
why do you think that dad is that mirror? Just through the dialogue, we talked about my mom for a while, and then you said dad was not going to be there was, and then now you're saying he's my biggest mirror. Like, do you think
So your dad is basically only accepting himself on the premise that God accepts him.
yeah. Oh, that would whoa. That's pretty limiting. Well, and yeah. Shit. And
So he has to follow the Bible and do X, Y, and Z to be accepted by God, so he can get into heaven.
yeah.
It's a bunch of rules.
Yep. And I feel like I've been trying to be like, Dad, those rules are made up.
Yeah, so you're not accepting his rules.
Well, because he
So
wants us.
you're so in a, as I said that it's like you being the rebellious teenager, not
Oh,
accepting his rules.
well, and he wants me to live under them. And I'm like, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that.
But you don't live in his house anymore.
Or in his country. Yeah.
But for for however long time you spend with him on Zoom, you can still spend time in his world and connect with him and accept him and his world, which will in turn lead you to accepting you and your world because you're about to open up spiritually.
Mm.
Like you're compared to see, I'm coming down to your world and accepting you for who you are.
Thank you.
It is far much of a drop down than you would be doing with your dad.
Yeah.
Far much. And I love you. I really do.
Yeah.
I think you're fucking awesome
Yeah. Thank you.
because I can accept you for who you are right now, which is why you've come to me as your healer because I've already learned acceptance.
Yeah.
You think about my previous podcast with Trav, I was just talking about everything.
Yeah.
I don't care what people think of me. I don't care. I'm talking about
Oh,
aliens and
that's
this,
what
that,
I
and the
thought.
other. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
That's my model of the world, and I believe it all, and it's fucking epic. And if you don't want magic in your life, well, there's something wrong with you. And if you don't want magic in your life, that's okay too.
That's your choice. Yeah.
That's your choice. And I accept that choice because it's your journey. And I understand that you've got to walk your journey and it's your mission.
So if
And
there's
I'm here
like,
to open people up. So where therefore anybody that comes in front of me are obviously ready to open up because if they weren't, they wouldn't be in front of me.
so do, like you just said, I accept your model of the world and all the things I believe are real for me. And that's okay if you don't believe them. Like that's, yeah. And that's not what I'm doing with my dad.
Because the thing is, like you said, oh, this shadow work's just too simple. The whole world operates on something called Occam's razor. The most obvious answer is usually the right one. And we overcome and any theory you have to add on to that. The more you have to theorize around things and make things and try and guess, the further away from the truth that you are. So that's why for you to learn acceptance, you got to learn. You just got to accept your dad.
Oh, crap. Okay. And my mom, we're cool.
Yeah, because you didn't really tear up with your mum.
No, I love my, yeah.
Yeah, because you accept your mum.
Yeah. Cause I feel fully accepted by her.
Yeah, funny that.
Yeah. She's just like, tell me more. And I'm
Yeah,
like, okay.
yeah, she accepts you, you accept her.
Yeah.
So
I'm
you
like,
don't
tell me
need to
more.
learn acceptance from your mum.
No. And we'll both be like, well, I don't see that the same way. And the other
But
person's like,
what might happen is once you've learned acceptance from your dad, the next level might be your mum's stuff.
ah, crap.
Told you, there's always a level. There's always another pit you can dig.
So what
There's
what
always
you're
another shadow you can delve into. There's always another cave. There's always another demon.
so is what you're saying, if I hang out with my dad and fully accept him, then all the money and all of my person will just like come into my life.
Yeah, that's the very, very, very simplified version. There's going to be little tweaks in between about because there might be other blocks around money with your
Yeah.
mum or someone else.
Yeah.
But in theory, you'll definitely get to another level of all that. Absolutely.
So that's interesting because it doesn't feel like fear is linked to that. But there would be some element of fear, I
Well,
guess.
yeah, but at the beginning, like you think about going, yeah, but I was scared like about the Bible and my dad would be this, that, and the other.
Hmm. Yeah.
Fear's a general term. We just got to pinpoint where it actually sits.
Yeah.
We fear a lot of things. Invariably, we only fear one thing:
Ourselves.
our own power,
Oof. Amen.
which is what we spoke about right near the beginning.
Okay.
So, listeners, I know we haven't sort of been, I haven't mentioned you too much. This is my first podcast, so forgive me because, I've just been really getting into what I can do and how I do things, and really focusing on Veronica's shadow.
I thought my grandma might come and play. I thought
Yeah,
we might learn about the history there. I don't know. I was
yeah,
like,
just got to go with the flow and got to go where it is. It was all about your dad. Um, and so those that are listening, that's kind of the rat's nest and the darkness. Shadow work. You do often fumble around in the dark, bit like teenagers on the first date, fumble around in the dark and can never press the right button.
some people do. Some people
And
find
you're
it.
probably doing it because you got daddy issues.
What? Wait, so what I also want to know is why if you're saying my ass is big to be seen and heard, did we get to the bottom of that? If I accept my dad, was my ass going to shrink?
Probably.
I was always told that was likely to be like sexual shame stored as.
There might be some of that as well,
Yeah.
but we haven't. Look, that'd be a whole nother
That's been a
delve.
there's nothing left there. Well, there must be something, but that's a whole lot of layers I've shed through a lot of really
Yeah.
empowering exploration.
Just very briefly on that, sometimes we can actually clear the emotions and clear the shadow, and the body still holds on to it. So we have to just unlock the body. Kinesiology is great for that.
Yeah.
And myotherapy, I think, is another one. The ones that unlock the body through muscle testing are great for helping the body to release what we've already cleared.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like anything, what I'm being shown in my mind's eye, when you've got a really, really tried to undo this bolt and it feels loose, but now the whole thing's spinning, and then you've got to spray some WD-40 on it and get another spanner, and then you can unlock it. Kind of like that. For the visuals out there, they'll get a visual of that and go, yeah, that makes total sense.
Oh, funny.
I talk in feelings usually.
Mm.
But yeah, so that was really, really fun. They really dragged that out to make the podcast last, which is great. So that just shows as well, like for those listening, that when you're in the flow of something, it always goes exactly how it's meant to go. And you know, when it's meant to jump quickly, it will do. When it's meant to go slowly, it will do. Don't try and force it. Allow it to be what it's be, and that's where all the magic is in regards to shadow work. That's where you get to really know all the lessons and find so much information about yourself. That's why I love shadow work, because you really get to know who you are, and then you can accept that, shine light on that, and be who you are. So then when people try and push that button, there's no longer a button to press, and you just go, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it used to be like that. I was that person, but not anymore. But I love that person. I love who I was back then, because I was going through a period where I was learning stuff, or being, you know, creating lessons to learn later on in life and grow.
Yeah.
The roots were going down at that point,
Yeah.
so the leaves could branch out.
Totally. I own all of my story. I live loud, I say all the time, because I think like that's all that made me who I am and continues to make me who I'll be. Like,
Well, you chose to live in Canada, be born in Canada. That's a bad start.
and then realized it was a bad choice at 19. It was like, see you. And now I
I
live.
just realised Canadians don't like the dark, do they? So no wonder you don't like your shadow.
That is not true.
I got that from How I Met Your Mother.
I was gonna say that's a How I Met Your Mother lie, and I
Yeah, it
love
is. Yeah, I used to love that show.
it's fun. Cool. Well, that's it. I just gotta hang out with my dad. That seems too easy. I
Yeah,
accept the homework.
good. And
Any other
I look forward to hearing about it.
any other tasking and future pacing you want to do for me?
Find out your favourite scripture and learn what you can from it.
Oh my gosh, there's tons.
There you go. See, so we already know how to hang out in his world easily enough.
Oh yeah. I go to church with them.
Yeah,
definitely. I know there's so much value in that space,
yeah.
and yeah.
And that's the other great irony about shadow work. We've always got the answers. We've just been ignoring them.
I think the missing piece was it was like I will do this, and you have to join me here, rather than I'll do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's shown up in lots of areas of my life. So thank you.
That's all right. Beautiful. And over the coming days, you'll get more and more real, because now we've opened that channel. You'll start getting intuitive downloads. You'll start getting aha moments over the coming week or month. Even you'll go, oh, that makes so much sense. Or even when you hang out with your dad, you're like, oh, wish I'd done this. You're definitely going to say that. Oh, wish I'd done this years ago.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting for me. Like I said, like we're just not in my physical space. We text each other all the time, and occasionally have chats. And there's definitely an element of being like, why am I having to be the way that he needs me to be? So I get to just really embrace that now.
So you can be his daughter, because that's who he wants you to be. And that's a fun thing to be.
Yeah.
Well, to all those listeners that stuck through that and are probably going, what the hell just happened? What the frick was all that about?
Daddy issues.
Daddy issues and Veronica's shadow. It's normally that simple. Daddy issues, mummy issues. So for those looking at the shadow, start there.
Totally.
Start there. You're normally close. You're normally in the ballpark if you start with mummy and daddy issues. Even if you don't believe you got any, you're lying to yourself, or they haven't become conscious yet.
Yeah, you might just not be aware of them yet.
Yeah, and that's okay. That is
Yeah.
perfectly okay. You're always at the exact place you need to be on your journey.
Yeah, a
So
lot
if
of
you're
the
in a
work.
place of gratitude and joy right now, that's brilliant. Give it another month.
A lot of the work I do with my clients too is that whole concept of like where can we reparent ourselves, and I think that's really powerful to recognize the way that the messages we can get about ourselves from the way we
Yeah.
view our parents.
So what's the name of your podcast again?
This isn't me.
This isn't me. Okay, so for those that want to follow Veronica's journey on This Isn't Me, you can go to that's on Spotify and the Apple as well.
I don't know if it's on Apple yet. It's supposed to
Okay,
be. Check, but
on
definitely
Spotify.
on
Okay,
Spotify. And yep.
so soon to be on Apple, currently on Spotify, and where else can they find you if they want to get in touch and work with you?
Yeah, Instagram, This Isn't Me podcast. Facebook, the same. I play on Instagram more than anything else.
You don't have a website?
I do. It's not active yet. It's in
Oh, okay.
construction. So yeah, all
So
of it's linked through my social media anyway.
yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Follow her on social media. She's this brilliant lady. You're gonna love her energy. She's awesome to hang out with.
I'll see you at a barbecue tomorrow,
Yeah. So looking forward to that. That's going to be off the charts. That is
Yeah,
because there's
there's
going to
going
be
to
so
be a
many
lot of
people there.
opportunity to talk about the beyond, I hope, as well. My friend is really excited to connect with
Yeah,
you.
I'll see if there's anybody there that's open to my mint leaf reading.
Ooh.
Yeah, I do this cute little party trick that started about 2 weeks ago where I can do someone's love life on a mint leaf.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Yeah, so
You bringing them in?
it'll be there. If I'm meant to do it, someone will bring them in. Trust me.
Ooh, oh, cool. I might drop some hints.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for
And
your
and
honesty.
yeah, beautiful. And then if people want to come and work with me, you can go to my website, which is www.iammerlin.com. No, .org. And across my social medias, I am Roy B, the middleman. So that's Facebook. That's a Facebook group. That's also TikTok and Instagram, although TikTok is still currently Roy B Quantum Healer because I only just started it and you've got to wait 28 days or 26 days before you can change it. So that's not going to become the middleman at TikTok until the 6th of November. The day after my sister's birthday, that is.
Oh, beautiful. You do a lot in respect of actually helping people channel and connect with people who have passed and things like that too. The format that we took today is not always how you're connecting.
No, yeah, that's just one of my modalities, like the shadow work, the deep inner work. But I tend to do it a lot quicker than that. For those that think it's always going to take 2 hours, it doesn't. I can.
That was for entertainment.
Yeah, that was for podcast purposes only.
And that's because I like to dance anyway.
Yeah, that's it exactly. And that's just to show people how it can work in the intricacies of it. Yeah, I do mediumship. If people want the tarot oracle readings, but I still do them very differently. Everything I do is under the banner of healing.
Yeah.
I have got like 4, 6, and 8 week packages available if you really want to go through massive transformation, and that can include anything to do with mind, body, or spirit or soul. So it might include like learning Reiki and removing old blocks through the mind event using NLP and ECT and hypnosis and or help you step up to your next level of intuitive gifts. So yeah, whatever it is that you need, everything's energy and I'll tune into energy. So
cool.
That's my jam.
With my energy and sharing yours. It was fun.
Excellent. Well, it was an absolute pleasure working with you, Veronica.
Yeah. Are you sure my grandma doesn't want to say anything? Not a thing?
If she does, I'll tell you tomorrow.
All right. So let me know.
Yeah. All right. Love you loads.
Thanks. Love you too, Roy.
And thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
And I hope you enjoyed my very first episode. And which episode would that be of yours, Veronica?
Oh, I don't know. It depends when I put it out, but I always name it. I'll name it Veronica's Shadow or something of the like to match. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Or I'm daddy issues. We'll see.
Yeah. You'll find hers, but mine is definitely going to be called Veronica's Shadow because I just think that sounds epic.
That's fun. Cool.
Excellent.
Thanks for playing in the
Thanks
dark.
very much.